We need to start the show. Why?
Let's get dangerous.
And here we are. I need to figure out what we're going to use for an outro, an actual outro. If we do one here, an end credits type scene. With the code copyright of 2024, I got to figure that out a little bit later. But everybody, welcome to Comic Book Spectrum. I am the person behind the switchboard for tonight here, and everybody else is here. And I don't know what's going to happen tonight. This is a new era in Comic Book Spectrum ever since we got the new intro. So what is going on, everybody?
Ooh.
Everybody just looking around like, I don't know what's going on.
Saw Acolyte number 5
Mm-hmm.
yesterday.
A little bit of
Uh,
action in that episode, huh?
Oh, wow.
Well, finally, yeah.
I was like, dang. And then it was like, dang. And then it was like, oh, that was not what I was expecting. I was
Mhm.
thinking it was going to be someone else behind the mask.
It should have been.
You know,
Yeah,
Was
because
every-
it pointed
every-
to him the whole time.
Everything led to him,
Yeah,
so it should have been someone else. Yeah.
it became less of a who done it and more of a what happened with the initial incident with the
yeah.
coven.
I thought it
and
might end up being
Jedi.
the witch with the horns.
Mm.
But even though I don't think the horns would have been able to fit under the helmet, I was still thinking they'd figure out a way to do that.
Mhm.
Because it was too obvious it was going to be that goofy kid.
Yeah. Well, the episode before, he just kind of just let her on. I mean, I was kind of still wondering if they were going to pull a switch.
Carrying
I'm like,
his
well, they
big
can't
duffel
now.
bag with his helmet and
Yeah,
robes
yeah.
in it.
I know. So,
No one will know.
however, that said, he was an excellent Sith Lord. I thought when he put on the persona, it really worked on just about every level. I mean, he's
Yeah.
pushing buttons. He knows exactly where to hit. And then, of course, his martial arts skills too, or his combat skills are high. So,
but that brings a question to mind because
Mhm.
the episode before that, when Osha goes to see him, he doesn't. It's like, okay, was that all an act that you didn't realize it wasn't May right off, or did you really not realize it wasn't May? Which means, okay, you're not as valuable as you'd like to think you are.
oh, could be either way, but I could see him pretending like he didn't know because notice how he changed. His whole demeanor changed every time she showed up in this last episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went back to
So-
even the goofy voice and the grin.
Yeah. So I
Though,
would say I would guess that he was putting on an act for her. but I
Probably
don't
he
know.
should know, just like Saul should know that the OSHA is not OSHA.
yeah, I was.
Yeah.
We were watching that, and it's like, and I'm like, little Sniffy dude realizes something's not on the up and up. How come? And it's like, are you that tired post your fight, or are you that clouded because of everybody you've lost just
Mhm,
now?
Mhm.
Because the contingent he brought as backup, they're dead.
mhm.
You know, outside of May and little Snippy dude, um, he probably
Well, a
got.
lot of people are
Well,
calling him
Basil the Trapper.
Smilo Ren and Asian discount Ezra Miller.
Oh, man.
Asian discount
He
Ezra
kind of
Miller.
looks like Asian Miller, Ezra Miller, but he's Asian. Because the
Asian
first time
Miller.
I saw him, I was
Wow.
like, Ezra Miller's in this? How did he get another job?
Is he the same actor that played on The Good Place?
I don't think I've ever seen him in anything, so I don't know.
I've never watched The Good Place more than
Okay.
every once in a while a clip will pop up somewhere and
Right.
I've caught like a few seconds here and a few seconds there and I know the basics of the series, but I've actually not sat down and watched it. And I keep thinking I should because one of the guys from the electric company, the newer one,
Mhm.
is in that series. He was one of the guys who was the pranksters.
Hmm.
Ah, cool.
He was one of the
Mhm.
pranksters from that series. And it's like, I should have watched that series because Brother Man got a job. Because sometimes you wonder when some of those series, when they end and they have those kids on who are so talented, and then
Mhm.
it's like they just disappear.
Where'd they go? Mhm.
The little girl who was of that brother sister connection, and they had did a whole thing on her. PBS did this documentary on her because um, her dad had wanted to be a rapper and things had not worked out for him. And then she wanted to be a rapper, and of course, she got on the show and things were taken off. And there was this constant sort of the dad wanted to go with a career that wasn't working for him, and she was trying to figure out what her place in the world is. And there was some conflict with that. And it's like my hope was like, okay, Lynn, this is your show. What are you going to put her in now? You know, this girl's got all this talent, Lynn. You should be out there making sure she's getting jobs. And
Hmm.
I don't think I've seen her in anything unless she's grown up and I just don't recognize her. I haven't seen her in anything since that show went off. Like I said, I've seen the older kids, but I haven't seen her do anything. It's like, well, did daddy hold her back or did she decide she wanted to go to school? Because I know going to school for child actors can be hard, because they get bullied at school. Tanya Tucker is famous. You guys probably don't remember Tanya Tucker.
Hmm. Oh yes, I do.
She got, when she did the album that she did the cover of Delta Dawn
Mhm.
she talks about later how the mean girls in school were just all up in her face, you know, and that was really hard for her because, especially since I think it was her parents who insisted that she continue going to a public school, and it's like she's selling $1 million albums. Get her a tutor,
Mhm.
you know, if for no other reason than if somebody finds out what school she's going to, what would stop them from kidnapping her
Hmm.
and extorting the family for money?
Manny Jacinto is the actor that he was in the good. I thought it was him, except he looks a lot different. But he was kind of a stoner surfer character in The Good Place, and now he's doing this. Kind of. I think what it was is when he's not being the bad guy, that persona he took on kind of reminds me of not a stoner, but very casual, laid back, kind of sketchy, and but yeah, it's the same guy from The Good Place. But I was really impressed with his take on being a dark side user. So,
He was in Brand New Cherry Flavor too, all 8 episodes.
Oh
okay,
wow.
Now I don't know who he was in it though, and I'm going to go watch that again.
yeah,
But he did kind of play that sort of harmless kind of, I'm just here, but I'm just here because I can get my drugs for free.
I'm doing stuff above the table, but I'm doing stuff under the table. But I'm not a threat. I'm okay. Yeah.
I'm not a, but then I have to realize, wait a minute, no, you killed the owner of this shop so you could take his shop.
Mhm.
So you could take over his shop. You
Well,
killed the person who owned that shop. So
in some parts of the republic on the edge, that's not really. That's sort of a victimless crime. So
it kind of watching this series, it kind of leans back towards Andor
mhm,
in that feeling that it's a grittier view of what that universe is.
true.
You
And
know, it's
the
and I
good
think
guys aren't all good, and the bad guys aren't all bad. It's grays, darks, and lights, but you know the absolutes that we think of it in terms of Star Wars before, especially Andor. Andor's very much that way. Enough that I'm kind of in the minority of my friends. They don't like it very much, but I thought it was
oh,
interesting.
I loved it. I will say I loved it. It was I was curious about his character anyway when I saw Rogue One. I
Mhm.
did want to know more about his character's backstory, what led him to make the decision to connect with the resistance. So from that aspect of it, it's like, okay, this is what made him who he is. So that I understand him better now at the point at which he meets her, when he meets Jen. It makes it a little clearer. Um, so I kind of like that. I also loved seeing that part of the empire that he sort of grew up in,
Mhm.
because I think part of when you see the fanboys losing their crap, I think because the first trilogy was this sort of bright, sparkly, yeah, Han's a rogue, Lando's a rogue, but they're not really bad guys. They're just rogues. And so, they're not really bad guys.
Lovable
Uh,
scoundrels.
yeah, they were the lovable scoundrels.
Or
And
nerf herders. Scruffy nerf herders.
That's right. That's right.
who you calling scruffy looking? But they weren't bad guys. It was a when you think about the time in which those movies were made, it was very much a black and white, but it was a bright, shiny thing. And as we go more into the backstories, as we whether it's New Batch or any of these, the Mandalorian and whatnot, we see that the Empire is more complex than this. And I can't remember who wrote it, but about a year ago, I read a great article. I'll have to see if I can find it. If I find it, I will send it.
Yeah.
Um, this person was writing about the true evil of Star Wars, that it isn't the big baddies that we think of. It's the everyday banalities that make the empire what it is. It's those people who get up and go to work every morning. It's the stormtroopers who aren't clones. It's the officers on the bridge. It's these people who get up and work in these departments every day that are the boots on the ground, sort of banality that drive that you know view of what the empire is. Yeah, it's Vader, but most people aren't going to deal with Vader. Most people aren't going to deal with the guy who's in command of the Star Destroyer. They're dealing with, they're dealing with those stormtroopers. They're dealing with those officers. They're dealing with those administrators and whatnot. And that's where the empire gets its real sense of menace from, because it's these people whose attitude of it's like, I don't care if there's a right or wrongness to what I'm doing. This gives me a sense of power. Um,
It's also the death of tradition, like on Andor, where they have these long-standing, cultures that there's no place in the Empire for that. That's a waste of, manpower, effort, and we don't observe that, and we're going to just basically stamp that out. Um, that was a big part of their tradition with the bells, with the chime, with the large bell towers and things like that, and their death rituals and stuff is no. We're not observing any of that. We're the Empire. You can observe our holidays if you want. 'Cause
Yeah,
we don't
but
have
you,
any. You know?
we don't really have any, Vader might get drunk once a year, but that's about
But he doesn't like fireworks.
No, no, no,
you know, but
no beach parties for Anakin either, because that damn sand. So
It's everywhere. Andor is the only series I have not watched. It's only because I didn't have time. And then when I finally did have time, I started to watch it. And I do a lot of watching and listening while I'm drawing. And it seemed like it was too much for me to draw while listening and looking up occasionally. And I was like, man, I've got to just sit down and have set time aside to watch it and not do anything else.
you have to pay attention to it visually because there's a lot of visual stuff going on in Andor where if you're just sitting there listening to it, you're not going to catch. Like when they do the flashback to where he was found as a child and why this colony was just children, why it was just children on this planet in this area, what had happened to all these, that it was just this place where orphans were.
Mm.
But it was also great because there's this is spoilers. Close your ear, Eric. Go la 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 la. There's a part where he's actually in jail. He gets busted when he's not doing anything wrong. He's doing stuff wrong. He doesn't get busted. The one time he's minding his own business, that's when he gets arrested. But he ends up in jail. He ends up in prison. And the place that he's at, they reveal at the end of the series, was making parts for the Death Star.
Oh.
These things that they're working on that they have to produce so much of each day, or they suffer for it, were actually things going on the Death Star.
Oh, okay.
So it was. So you find out how interconnected how really connected to this story he really was, and he didn't know at that time that that's what they were doing. He didn't know that that's what all this stuff that these men were working and dying on. That's what it was for. Oh. And so, but having watched the movie again not too long ago, it's like, oh, if he only knew. But it gives you that sort of, oh, okay. And, it's like, Jen's father is working on this, but, that's, and that question comes because he helped design, her father is the guy who helped design this thing. If he knew what,
I have his figure. Because it was on clearance. And sadly, he has to sit on my Empire shelf.
That's
he should have thought what he was doing in the first place.
But it's interesting. I love that Clyde, when you're talking about the whole burial thing for his adopted mother.
Mm-hmm.
There's that part where it hits you in the feels because you realize that this isn't just the place where people are living and struggling. This is a community. These people are connected, and this is part of their makeup, and it makes the Empire more frightening because you realize how sanitized. If you think about, especially the initial ship designs and the uniforms and stuff, it's a very sanitized world.
Yep.
It's all very clean and sanitized. There's no, the stormtroopers all look alike. And then you find out, oh, that's because their first generations were clones. It's this very, and it's funny because I always think George Lucas was thinking of, Sauron in science fiction, because those of us who know the Tolkien books knows that Sauron wanted to order the world the way he thought it should be. And it's like, oh, okay, so That's what this guy is doing. He's just ordering. It is, Sauron got Middle Earth. This guy's ordering. He's like Sauron. He's ordering the universe. The only thing is, there's no little ring. that you can- there's no little hobbits in a ring and magic outlaw.
Mhm.
But
No, but in the last episode of Acolyte, they went on their little hobbit quest through the forest.
you get kind of, it's like any minute, it's like, okay, if Billy Boy pops up and goes, yes, but what about second breakfast? I'm gonna die.
I
I
watch
am just gonna
I
die.
watch a channel. He does. This guy does deep fakes of him as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Qui-Gon Jinn reviewing all the Star Wars shows. But he also does deep fakes of doing Lord of the Rings, and he does a great Gandalf. So they're reviewing that episode of Acolyte, and they show that scene where they're all walking across the grass, and then he does the Gandalf voice saying, "We walk for 90 days," and then he turns does the Obi-Wan, "Get out of here!"
I've seen that guy. Because
Charlie something, yeah.
occasionally he'll review like Rings of Power.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's done the movies and stuff like that, and he will just crack. I keep wondering if Billy and Dom why they haven't had him on their show yet.
Mm.
But then I realized, okay, they're not doing their show right now.
And then his Qui-Gon character, because he does the deep fake and he looks like Qui-Gon, it sounds like Qui-Gon. He gets so pissed every time someone gets stabbed in the gut with a lightsaber, and the next episode they're alive. So Obi-Wan told him they invented bacta tanks 7 minutes after Darth Maul stabbed him. He was so excited when Trinity died in the first episode of Acolytes because he knew there was no bacta tanks around. He started laughing. The Qui-Gon, he's like, she's dead.
That broke my heart. That totally broke my heart. It's like, why y'all gonna punk Trinity?
That was a complete waste of an actress.
It was like, you friggin' punked Trinity. How dare you? And then I watched the second episode. It's like, oh, but this is so good. It's like, I really hate that my boyfriend cheats on me, but he's such a good kisser. What is Joe doing?
He's been talking to the crowd since we've been Star Warsing, and he couldn't get in a word, so he was just talking to the crowd on the chat.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, I've got my phone.
I'm doing my job. I'm keeping the people entertained while you guys are talking about and geeking out about shows that I don't watch.
I'm sorry, I did not know you were not watching The Acolyte.
Well, I will say I haven't been impressed with it. I did like the last episode.
No, y'all guys keep going.
I don't know where it falls in the episode, in all the TV and stuff I've seen, because I have gone back and watched Boba Fett, and Boba Fett sucked. But it's Boba Fett.
It's 100 years before A New Hope.
Yeah, kind of. Kiadi Mundi should have been sperm at that point, but he showed up in an episode.
Yeah,
They want to say, well, there was legend stuff. No, there's canon stuff out there from the Phantom Menace trading cards and games that stated his age on it. Like, man, you guys can't be Kiadi Mundi. Oh, you messed that up.
well, it's interesting because back in the day when Marvel started doing the Star Wars comics, I went to what is now C2E2, but wasn't called that back then. It was the Chicago Comic Book Convention. And I met Joe
about
Duggan.
Wizard World. You talked about Wizard World because Wizard World was eventually, well, the Chicago Comic Con was there first, and then Wizard bought them out, and it became Wizard World. C2E2 was a whole different thing.
This was in the 80s. This was in the early 80s.
Chicago Comic Con.
I was there. And
I have a program somewhere from the '96 Chicago show, and I don't know where it's in a frame.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
met
on a wall.
I met Joe Duffy, who was the editor at Marvel assigned to the Star Wars story. And that we talked for about a good 45 minutes because she was the first female comic book editor that I heard of, and she just used to use Joe J-O Duffy
Oh,
instead of her full name.
Mhm.
But she was like, it was sitting there with her, listening to her really go off the rails because she was talking about how Lucas was driving her crazy because they would do a book and they had to send it to Lucas
mhm.
before they could put it out. So they got to, instead of having a book that was maybe a month ahead, they had to have 3 months ahead because Lucas would sit there and have the book and then wait to the last minute and go, "Oh, you can't use that."
Yeah.
And she would say, "Why?" She'd say, "Oh, because I'm thinking, because this was in between movies 2 and 3." So he would say, "Oh, I might use that idea for the next movie, so you can't use that."
Hmm.
You know, or we did it this way in this movie. Number two, we did it this way. Number one, we did it that way. So you can't use that. It's like we're just expounding. No, you can't use that. So he was just driving her up the wall because every time she turned around, she said they never put out an issue that he didn't have an issue.
Right.
It was just, it was just totally, and it was like, I must be the only person at one of these events who has sat and listened to I felt like I was doing therapy for her because she was just 5 seconds short of tears. And it's like, okay, I don't think I'd ever want to, be that type of editor because I would, I just know my level of anger and PTSD. I would just show up at Skywalker Ranch with a baseball bat and some brass knuckles, and by the time I was done, I'd go back to Marvel if I hadn't been busted by then and go, okay, we're doing it our way from now on. George has got anything to say. The end. Be like, yo, dude, let me show you a few moves I learned in boot camp. Because it's like to do that because it's like they're trying to put a book out. He's agreed to let them do this book. And then he's totally up their butt, which slows down their ability to get the book out on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So it makes everything about it a headache. I always wonder, going back what you and I were talking about, Clyde, with Dark Horse, if dealing with, Fox was any easier when they were doing the Alien series because they seem to, like I said, they built so much of the lore and that, and I had to go back into what I remembered about Aliens, Colonial Marines, and the first AVP book, and just the fact that so much of what was in those books came out in the movies. Even when you think of number three takes stuff from the books. They take stuff from the books. So it's like, oh, okay. So at least they weren't fighting. Oh, look, Eric's got somebody he's talking to.
Mm-hmm. And then they also did crossovers with the company. If I remember right, they did a Terminator, RoboCop. And there was one other franchise. That would be a nightmare if you had all of them trying to, prove what you did.
Dark Horse and Superman did a Superman Alien crossover.
Yep, I remember that.
And I guess he had lost some of his powers, but not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in I think I was in a bookstore, and I just happened to see the issue, and I was thumbing through it, and that issue ended with the face hugger getting on Superman. I'm like, oh no, oh no, face hugger with Kryptonian abilities. I don't know how that's gonna work out. That's that would be. I could just see that being a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I never did manage to get the next issues. So I don't know how. All I know is Superman was on some colony. They were having problems. Their problems turned out to be the aliens, and Superman got infected. And I didn't get any farther than that.
I don't
And
remember if I read that.
the further away he was, where that was at, he was far enough away from the sun that as he used his powers, they did not replenish.
Yeah,
So when
because
he would use his powers, he became more
Ah.
and more mortal. You
Yeah.
know, so he's pretty high-minded about everything at the beginning. You know, the alien blood can't hurt him, but by the end of it, he's taking things a little more seriously because
my thought was at the point the face huggers actually crawling up your face, that's a bit too late to take that seriously. You should have taken that seriously about halfway before you got to that point.
Oh yeah.
if I remember right, that was one of those oh my gosh moments. But then you could talk about a guy that still had his heat vision lit peepers on. So
Yeah.
if I remember right, it did not become that part didn't culminate into what worst case scenario like you were thinking of, but it could have. It definitely could have.
Yeah, the alien colonial marines actually went into some interesting territories. They at one point, I'm trying to remember if it was the colonial marines or what, but they had developed a synthetic alien. It was a synth like Bishop, but they made it look like an alien.
Huh.
And the work crew it was with, the guys got it to smoke. They had created two. One was a dog and one was this alien, in the hopes that they could invade a nest.
Oh.
Hmm.
And they got it to smoke cigars because guys in the crew that this poor creature was with thought it was funny to see an alien smoking cigars. And that was the cover. Yeah. And I wish I still had that issue. It would probably be worth something now. What are we drawing, Mr. Eric?
I'm just doodling, practicing for my show tonight. We're doing we have a author on who does books, fantasy books. Herman P. Hunter, and his newest book that he just released a couple weeks ago is Revenant and the Cult. Yeah, because Revenant and the Tomb was one of the other ones. So we don't have any visual representation because it's a novel. So he's giving us descriptions of characters.
Oh, okay.
So we have to go off that tonight. So that's why I'm just doodling.
Ooh.
That'd be, as a writer, that would be fun to do.
Yeah, we've had a few on there. He's been on there twice. We've got another one scheduled for December. I think that's it though. As far as we don't get a lot of authors on there. Yeah, because some people don't like the topic we do. They just don't show up, like when we did Broadway.
Wow, that's just so wrong in so many different ways.
And the one I thought wouldn't show up, who showed up and had the most fun, was Rabbit from England.
Mm-hmm.
And he found the Bruce Campbell movies.
Evil Dead?
Evil Dead musical. He found an Evil Dead musical and was drawing a Bruce Campbell from that.
Nice.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know that Bruce Campbell was in Evil Dead the musical.
Well, he wasn't in it, but he drew Bruce Campbell from it.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, he had a good time with it. He thought that was so cool just to find that out.
I love me some Bruce Campbell. He's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. I've never seen him live, but I've watched a lot of his panels on YouTube or something like that when he's at a convention. Oh, I would love to go see him live on one.
He's one of those actors who just, some actors at panels, you can see they're nervous. They're not exactly comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't for they were playing, the big character, you could picture half that audience getting up and going, okay, I need to go grab something to eat. I'll be back later.
Yeah.
Even though you could just see the room dying. I always wonder if Marvel kind of trains their groups when they send them out. Because I've noticed because I've noticed like they do have certain people that they always send, like Anthony Mackie and the dude who plays what's his face, the Winter Soldier. They have really good
Mm,
chemistry together,
yeah.
and they are very funny, especially if they're on a red carpet and they're picking on poor Tom Holland.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
well, Tom
I know.
deserves
Yeah.
it.
You know. Well, no, because they get extra. They get extra mean. They start talking about you got your juice box. I got spare diapers. It's like you take the Pampers, right? I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys are just cruel. Yeah, I mean, but those two seem to have a lot of fun when
Yeah,
they're
they really do. Yeah.
they have a lot of fun.
What's his Sebastian?
Sebastian Stan.
Yeah, Stan. I was gonna say Shaw. I was like, no, it's not Shaw. He's come out and said how much he really missed being with Anthony Mack because he's not in the new movie.
Oh, he's not.
No, he came out and said, he really loved the time him and Anthony Mack are on screen together and work together, and he really missed that because he wasn't in that whatever the name is this week for the movie coming out.
I was really sad that they never did another season of Falcon and the Winter Soldier because I love their chemistry so much. They can do those heavy scenes together
Mhm.
where there's a lot of drama, but then they also do comedy, and they do that comedy of we're trying to figure each other out.
Yeah.
It's not your typical, oh, we're just best buds now. It's no, we're trying to figure each other out. And it's kind of this, dad liked me. It's almost this Smothers Brothers dad liked me best type situation. Except dad's not there anymore, so they have to figure out how to get along without dad in the picture. Dad being Steve Rogers in this case.
Well, that's the whole thing. I don't see that. I don't see that. I see their relationship being exactly how Steve and Bucky was back in the comic. That's what Mackie and I can't think of his name right now had in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Sebastian Stan.
Yes, Mr. Stamp. So that's the whole thing. That was the chemistry that we're kind of like best buddies, but yet at the same time, we both are honoring the man that we're supposed to have relationship with in the aspect of being Captain America. Because again, going back to the comics, both of them have been Cap in the comics. And that would make me wonder. That what makes me wonder what is going on with Anthony Mackie. Did they not bring him in because he's no longer Captain America in the comic books in this standpoint?
I don't know, but if you can find it, Jimmy Fallon did an interview with Anthony Mackie. It's my favorite video of him. He talks about the first time he smoked weed. And the story, if I'm feeling low late at night and I need a giggle before bed, I always go to that video. If you go to my channel, YouTube/C/Elaine Haygood, it's in my playlist favorites, and it's a great because he talks about he was at Sundance in Utah, and he meets a girl, boing boing, as he puts it, and he meets this girl, and she gets him to smoke something, and they're out, and he's not exactly on an even keel, and he sees what he thinks is a horse. And they're walking, and he's thinking, I need to go get that horse and put this lady on that horse. Except it turns out it's not a horse, it's a moose. And it's a baby moose. And Mama Moose shows up, and she's not happy that he's messing with the baby moose.
Moose are not nice.
No.
They will kill you dead.
Yep.
Hey, speaking of Captain America,
Mhm.
next Thursday is the 4th of July.
Yes, that is correct.
So,
I will not be here.
yeah, I will not be here.
I'm
I thought it was automatic that it was going to be suspended for next week.
I figured,
oh
but
good.
Well, it is now.
we should
Yeah.
tell people, yeah,
Yeah.
just so that they know.
I will be cooking for the family. And it will be hot and humid in my apartment. And so I would rather not have to be on camera unless you want to hear me. Things like, you better eat that shit accent all day. you know, so, if you don't want to have to deal with any of that, it's like, what do you mean you threw it up? You better swallow that back down.
Elaine, why is your screen all fogged up? Shut up! I've been cooking all day. My apartment is hot.
Today I made cupcakes. I'm so proud of myself. I
Nice.
made cupcakes for my goddaughter's birthday is Saturday. Oh, tomorrow? It said YouTube said Saturday. Okay. Can I pull you in front of the camera and show you out? Hold on, I'm bringing Sweet Pea in front of the camera.
And there's your PSA here. Don't forget to leave the apple pie out for Captain America on Independence Day Eve.
That's right.
No, I baked. Luckily, the cupcakes did not take long. Get to my Sweet Pea.
Hi, Sweet Pea.
Hello.
They said hello. She can't hear because I've got my headphones on, so she can't hear you.
Yes.
She's like, get me out of here.
But yeah, baking cupcakes. It's like I got up, I did some dishes. I let John make his lunch, and then I baked the cupcakes. And by the time I was done baking the cupcakes and took care of some emails, it was like, okay, I need to go lay down because you know I've been by a hot oven. You know, I need to go lay down, and I don't know when I'll get up again. And it was so funny because I put on I have music and stuff playlists that I listen to on YouTube when I'm working or sleeping or whatnot. And I put some music on and rolled over, and then something said, "Hey, do you know what time it is?" And I rolled over again, and it was like 6 o'clock. I need to get up. I did not finish my book. Oh, really? Oh, really, Miss Leia? Really? I have not sent them prints yet, Miss Leia. Hey, maybe the prints won't make it.
Uh-oh.
Pick
But
on me.
I do have one thing here that she did bring up to my attention here. And since we all have some artistic skills, let's take our opinion on this because it is brought up to me as a hideous cover.
Is it one of these banned DC covers by the artist using AI?
No. No, I wish it was that, but no. It's not that. To me, it's more stylized, but I understand why. I understand why it looks the way that it does.
You know what that style reminds me of? Aliens versus Avengers. Really?
Mhm. That's an upcoming series. So that get to look at the full cover there.
Okay.
And
the style.
we was in the crowd talking about this, and I was like, my whole thing here is like the thing that comes up is the face. It's like, yeah, there's actual women that actually do look like that. It is stylized, but it's not one of those things that would make me go out and be like, oh, I gotta buy this book.
Yeah, it's. You know what she's doing? It looks like the old what they call the duck face. She's sucking her, she's sucking her cheeks in so hard her lips are like 6 feet away from her face.
That's a defense mechanism against having a face hugger, I think. But it does not look attractive.
It's an ugly cover. It's just stylized where it's like it doesn't sell me on the book.
Also, I'm not the way her hands are out. It's like Okay, are you reaching forward to
Well,
give it a
her left shoulder would be coming out of her chest right about here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, are you trying to hug it? Are you shooting and it
She's
ducks
doing
out your
some
way?
weird Spider-Man spider shooter gesture. If you pay attention to her hands, she got one hand going kind of like, if I could do it like that, and the other one
Yeah,
kind of like going like this towards him.
yeah, like she's doing the
And it's
Peter
just like
Parker.
it's like, okay, are you trying to shoot your whatever cosmic spectrum that you normally shoot here, or what's going on? But I wouldn't say it's ugly. At least it's not Frank Miller ugly.
Oh,
It's not. It's nowhere close to that. It just, to me, it's just stylized, but it doesn't sell me on the book.
It
Have I
looks
seen
like
better? Yes,
it
but
looks like they're trying to copy an artist who did a Wolverine Electra book
mhm.
some years ago. There was a Wolverine Electra book. It was in two parts. In fact, the story that was in that book was part of what they used for the Electra movie that did so bad with Jennifer Garner. But the artist that did the did that book is a Japanese guy known for his early video game work. But and that looks like it's kind of a really badly bastardization of his work.
It
But it
could be. I don't know. I wouldn't put it past people, but like I said, it's stylized. It's stylized. It's not bad, but it's not good.
is that a
If
third
I could
arm
put
coming out of
if
her
I could put it
back?
to you that way, it's like it's not bad, but it's
I thought
not
it was
good.
too. I don't think it is though. 'Cause it looks like there's a. I think that's the tail, but it kind of looks like an arm resting on her hip and from behind.
Ah, I see. Yeah, it's supposed to be the tail coming around to get her. But the thing is if it's on her left side and it's that high up, she should have caught.
Yeah.
She should have caught sight of it. Whoever did this cover, it's like they don't know either. They don't know the creature, the xenomorphs well, and they don't know Captain Marvel. They don't know Ms. Marvel well either. It's like they
Or
don't
both.
really,
Or both.
they
Zoo
don't know.
Zoo Orzo. I've never heard
Okay,
of them. Zoo Orzo.
Okay, she's saying the issue 2 cover is bad too. Okay, she's just sent it here. The Alien to her, the Alien 5 Carol Danvers is terrible. I
Ooh.
don't think she's terrible. I just think the body is just really out of position because
Yeah.
it's like it's
It's
like
not
her upper
dynamic.
body is not turned right, you know.
It's not a dynamic pose.
Right, exactly. It's
And
overly static.
yeah,
Whoever did this cover never seen it. Wow, harsh.
What did she say?
whoever
Harsh.
saw this cover never saw a woman apparently.
She is a woman.
But it's kind of like
Harsh.
I'm a Russian model. I'm trying to look thinner than I am. It's just,
Harsh.
it's really, I
That's harsh.
Her other art looks really, really good. I don't know.
Mm.
It might have been a Frank Miller thing. Oh, you give me some money here, have this.
This is the other cover.
now this is it's better. It's
Again,
better than
I
the
can see
first
this is
one.
stylized. This is very stylized.
It's very static. It's very static. What little action there is in shadow in the back. But I mean, it's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad.
It's not bad. I mean, I like the shadows better than in the foreground.
Yeah, I was
I
about to
hate to
say
say that.
it does give you more going on in the I'm more curious about what's going on in the background than I am, but it's like because it's like, okay, if you've got that, is that the shadow that they're throwing because they're facing a life source behind them and it's throwing a shadow back there, or is that them behind them? And so they look like they're searching for something and they don't know these guys are creeping up behind them. I could be wrong.
Again, the cover actually tells a story, which is good, but the foreground doesn't make it seem interesting enough.
Well, because you see 3 open eggs. Are they already spent? Have the face huggers come out already?
But here's the thing: 3 open eggs, but they're looking forward. They're not looking down. They're looking forward. That's the problem.
And the aliens are behind them.
Right. They're looking for it would have been interesting if they were looking down at the eggs trying to figure out what was going on and then have the shallow background of the aliens behind them because okay, fine. They don't know what's about to happen. But
Oh,
what are
I
they
know what
looking forward
happened.
at?
I know what happened. They just found this scene. Loki pops up with a camera. Smile! Look at the birdie. They're all looking at Loki with a camera. He's got
Or
enough.
or, Cap, or Captain Marvel. Maybe
You know,
she's on the other side. It's like say cheese and they turn around like cheese and then Hulk don't say cheese.
yeah. Hulk is like,
he kind of has that stern like half smile. Hulk don't say cheese.
you know, Hulk could be home eating cheese whiz.
Oh my God. Yeah, zoom in to Captain Marvel's face. Oh.
Like I said,
She looks like she's 90
already
years
saw
old.
it. I saw it. That's why I say it's overly stylized.
Oh no, I mean in the other one.
That's not. I don't think that was.
You don't think that's
Marvel.
Captain Marvel? Who do you think that is then?
That's one of the X-Men.
I don't think that's Captain Marvel. I have no idea who that is.
Man, her face.
I think that's one of the X-Men. There's something about
she's a Nova. There's a Nova emblem on her chest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on her
okay.
abdomen. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's bad.
Oh, yeah.
That
Is that the woman that runs the Nova Corps?
Maybe.
Because Glenn Close would not be. If Glenn Close
she
thinks
does not
that
look
she is
happy
not
at
really happy.
all. She's like, "Why are you taking my picture? We don't."
It
have
looks like
pictures
she
in
forgot her
Nova Corps."
dentures.
It looks like Hulk did her makeup.
No. Parallax is saying that is Captain Marvel, and yep, that is her symbol right there.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's a new uniform. So that's why I'm up here like I don't think it's her, but yep, that is her. And she does not look like she's happy. Or she
look
might
like the
be,
Avengers.
She might be an angry drunk because her nose is red.
They look like the Avengers Gothic couple. It's just...
She looks. I'm 63 and she looks older than I do.
Yes.
And that's sad.
Yeah, she looks like she's in her late 80s.
Yeah.
Aunt May is now Captain Marvel.
Aunt May is Captain Marvel.
There should be underneath. There should be a little thing in a hashtag saying, "This week's guest star for the book is the ghost of Aunt May as Ms. Marvel."
What was her nickname in the Galactics book? Golden Oldie.
Yeah.
When she was the herald, the Golden
Oh
Oldie.
no.
Guest starring the Golden Oldie.
Yeah.
Hulk looks like he has diarrhea and he's fighting to hold it in.
He would look better.
Not diarrhea. He's trying to hold it in that part. It's like
he would look better if his
Hulk
head
don't
was
wanna
smaller.
Hulk don't want to give position away. Hulk must hold part.
But scroll down to Morales.
Oh, is that Miles?
I don't have
You can't
control
scroll
over that. These are pictures that are being sent to me.
Okay.
His abdomen. Well, he's a Spider-Man, so maybe he's supposed to have a really, really long abdomen.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah, that Hulk looked like Franken Hulk.
I think if they just resized the head or the body on the Hulk, that would look a lot better. His head is just too big.
Yeah, there's more head than shoulders there.
Yeah.
I wonder if they did this in Photoshop.
I don't know, but it is overly stylized. So that's what drew my attention and what was the whole thing. It's like, oh, it's really bad. It's like it's not as bad. It's not good, but it's not bad. Will it
Yeah,
sell a book? I don't know. I don't think it will. I don't think it would sell
Mm.
this book.
I'm not planning to go, unless somebody tells me, oh, I took a look and it's really, really good. It's not something I'd spend $6 on, because I bet you it's not cheap.
Probably be
This will
9.
be one of those books that's like, what's the variant cover look like?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had to go there. I had to go there. Like, what's the variant cover look like?
Where's Dynamite Comics when you need them? Give us 100 different variant covers so we could pick a good one.
It's
I
like they
just,
will have all 74 covers. Yep.
Oh, yeah. I do think it is digitally painted.
It's a cover.
it's supposed to look like watercolors or gouache, but yeah, it feels like somebody photoshopped that.
Yeah, I think this one's digitally painted, which I mean that's fine sometimes. But yeah, I could tell with the debris floating around the eggs. It's repeats itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they used a brush that's got the effects. And
Yeah.
stuff. So I mean it's fine, but yeah.
I think I have that brush.
I mean
in my-
it's a better painting job than I can do painting because I can't paint in
I
real life or
agree.
Photoshop. I could draw. That's about it.
I agree. That's the reason why I'm not land blasting it. It's like it's not bad.
But it's very static. They're looking in the wrong direction. Even if you're supposed to have this buildup of suspense, they're addressing the audience, which takes you out of they should be looking down at the eggs.
Hmm.
Yeah. There's
So they-
there's no motion in that cover. They're just all very
Yeah.
very stiff
Yeah.
poses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how much art the guy's done. I mean, I find myself doing that too. But
Yeah, but
it's Marvel.
It's Marvel, and like I said, that one is still overly static. It's like
there's so
Captain
much
Marvel's
wrong
pose.
with it.
Captain Marvel's pose just does not fit with this image.
Yeah, it just does not. And it's like what was the necessity of the little belt thing, the flaps in her belt just kind of floating out there? It's like
No,
that
it's
that
the sash that's on her side.
but it's
There,
it
if they were floating in the wind forward, that would mean that her hair would be coming forward too. The wind has
Yeah.
to be in the same direction. You can't have the wind back and the sash going forward. The sash will have to be back.
did she have a galactifart or something? I'm just kidding. You know?
But then again, she will also have to have hips, and she would have to kind of put her hip to the side to kind of let that far out to make the sash go that way.
Yeah, I'm just there is so much about this and she's also fatter than she should be.
She's not fatter. She's straight up and down. She has no shape.
Oh,
She's just
she's-
straight up and down.
So she's standing where her body is sideways. It's like
She
she's
got a
trying to
stick up
her
her butt.
her body is facing the camera and her arms and head are facing the alien.
Well, the alien's already torn off the one arm. That's why it's kind of floating there in front of her.
Right.
All right, I got to go to the other
right,
show,
her,
guys.
Her
so
right
I'll see
hand
you.
is kind of like
in 2
extra
weeks.
elongated, as if it was pulled out of its socket.
Bye, Eric. Have a
Bye.
good show.
Bye.
See you guys later.
Oh well. Hold on. Tell him. Oh, he left. Oh well.
Bye, guys.
You would get his information another day.
Leah says that the cover price for this book is $7.99. There's no way I'm popping $8 for that. There's just no way.
The inside has to be amazing and stellar to get past that cover.
Yeah, because I'm sitting there going, let me guess. Everybody else was sick or had broken their hands, and so you found a fourth grader to do the cover for you.
Mm-mm. No, I could.
You know.
I feel this here. They
Just
probably found somebody who has been doing graphic arts for other type of media or mediums, and
and gave
thinking,
them a
oh,
shot.
they could be good enough to do a comic book cover, and this is what you get.
Oh my goodness,
This
no.
might be good. This might be good for storyboarding or maybe a storybook or something to that magnitude, just like a random illustration. But average everyday cover, I don't think so.
Even as somebody who's storyboarded, even when you're doing storyboarding, you
So
have to
this is
pay
the
attention.
example. This is the example that she's up here trying to equate it to, just to give you an idea. But again, this is back in the days of her being the Miss Marvel outfit. But that's the sash. Like I said, it's off her hip and everything, the sash and everything kind of flows. She's not
Yeah.
straight up and down. She's not straight up and down. She actually has curve.
Well, that and it's a dynamic pose.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, okay, so let's see what she's got going on. She's flying. There's movement. It's not, there's stuff going on behind her. Kind of like, yeah, I just left all this stuff going on. I'll see you later. Um, even they've even set the camera. They've set the camera so the buildings are off kilter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just your straight up and down shot. It's got some interest to it. The colors and stuff. That other one just I don't I would not put down my hard earned very hard on.
Yeah.
I'm a man.
So
I'm a man.
I
Yeah,
mean that was the point. That was the point here that she was making. That Parallax was making was the same point that I said earlier about the sarong should be going in the same direction as her hair.
yeah.
If it was truly was wind, if it was truly was wind here. The second cover you saw, he is doing the inside of the book. Oh, that's
Okay. So
not good. That's not a good sign here. So if
yeah,
this is if the outside is the type of art that's going to be on the inside, it's going to be an ultra stylized book. So it has to be an awfully great writer to get past that.
yeah. Because it's there.
Which brings up
Um.
a good conversation to have. And
I,
the thing about it is that I argued the latter for the longest time. And the latter is always good writing can save a comic book, regardless of art. Because the art could be stylized in such a way where people may not like it, but the story, the way that it's told and the way that it flows on the sheet of paper, even with bad art, can make a great story if the writing is great. Could it become
yeah.
stellar with greater art? Yes.
I
But
just I
I don't see it always the other way where you have the best art in the world, but if the story is terrible, the book is terrible. Because we
like
don't
it.
always go to a book to look at the pretty pic per se. And
I'm also
maybe I'm in the minority on that. But
no,
that's something that we could talk about. That's something that we could have a good conversation about real quick before we get into reviews.
but also I guess in regards to that, like you said, it should tell a story, which is what I tried to do with my variant covers, was tell a story, this continuing story about E and that guy. I was trying to tell the story of how he views her and how he treats her. Um, but it's, I guess again, it's that when you think about what's supposed to be in front of them, those eggs, they're addressing the camera. They're not looking. It's like they've walked. The minute that they start looking at the camera, they've left the story. They're not in there. It's as if they were not in the story. They were just figures put in put in there, but they're not really part of the story. They're all posed, you know, but they're not looking at what it like they post for a photo, but because they're not addressing what's in front of them, which is the eggs, and they're not aware of what's behind them, which is the creeping menace. that if it gets their hands on them, it'll make their lives hell. So it's like, well, you're not really part of the story, and you're not part of the story in a way that doesn't pull me into the story.
Well, let me show you guys this here because Parallax brought another compelling argument. This is the cover to issue 1.
Okay.
I have to get out of publisher's mind because in my publisher's mind, I'll be up here. It's like, yeah, let's go back to the drawing board on this. Not because of the graphics per se. It doesn't make me want to buy the book.
Again, they're addressing the camera. They're addressing the viewer. The alien is behind them. Is that supposed to be just the idea of the alien behind them? It's like it's not really an alien behind them. That's what they're ultimately having to deal with. But they're addressing the camera with the threat behind them. And they're addressing the camera as if the threat was in front of them. Or, maybe I'm 63. I know sometimes I don't always get the point.
And that corresponds to what you're saying. They're posing for a picture no one took. Yes. It's not telling a story because it's like, I'm just trying to figure out, it's like, when was the last time that I see Iron Man kind of like going like this, trying to fire a repulsor blast?
Yeah, because it's like he's
that
trying
doesn't make any sense. He's going around like this and like, okay, I'm about to fire a repulsor blast because I can't hit Captain America who's right in front of me. It's like, no, you'll be higher up in the air. I can see you coming, dive bombing down to repulsor blast, but not kind of jumping to the. Sorry, it's like my small camera. It's like he's jumping to the side trying to do a repulsor blast, and the same thing. It's just like, okay, I'm Captain Marvel. I'm going to follow suit like Iron Man. I'm going to follow the same arcing motion. It's like, no, that doesn't tell a story. It's not a compelling story. And then the threat is behind them. It would have been interesting if there was like a whole bunch of different type of aliens in front of them, and the bigger overarching aliens in the background, kind of looking over menacingly.
Even if they just had the silhouettes of smaller aliens in front. So you got the feel that they were attacking something. They're defending against something. But it's like, oh, the real threat is behind you, but you coming from my butt. Thank you. That's exactly what I want to see in a superhero.
Because the way that the cover is being done, it's like the alien that's in the background, he's not fully rendered. It's just like a part of his image, like from the torso up is being there to show that that's your menacing threat that's there. But yet, where are they fighting? You got nothing but rocks and a chasm, and they just doing random stuff. It's not telling a story.
Make it a metallic surface behind him, and that'd be a reflection. With you see their heads and stuff a little bit. That would work better because then he's you're seeing the alien because you're seeing him reflected and seeing what they see. That would work even.
Yeah, you could see their backs. You would see it reflected. You'd see a bit of their backs, but you would see it reflected. And even if you didn't see him in front, you knew what they were facing. But it's like that's not a reflective surface back there. It's just the star field above the. It's like, okay, and it's. I'm kind of wondering if it was like whoever approved the cover was like, okay, we just got to get this stuff done. We got to get it up. We only have so much time. We got to get it up. We got to get it done. We don't have time, but I then go back to the old days of Marvel. And yes, I'm getting in the way back with Sherman and Peabody. Hold on, folks, we're going quick. But even in the old days, the covers, even if what was happening on the cover wasn't exactly what happened in the book, it still gave you an idea of what was supposed to be taking place. And this is just, I don't know. It's I'm sitting here going again. I would not pay $7.99 plus tax for this. I just I wouldn't, and it just feels like whoever got the assignment didn't understand it.
Probably so. Let's see. Carol and Iron Man are dodging a non-existent threat. Yeah, I can see a dodge, but I'm also looking at, when you have a multi-pronged attack and you got somebody going straight up the center like Captain America and they're in your way. It's like, okay, now we got to move in such a way to accommodate having his back.
But see, even still, that doesn't make sense because if you
Yes.
think about the movies, and I've read plenty of Avengers comics, they should be flanking him, not both
Hmm.
coming from the same side. It would make more sense if they were flanking him. He's coming down the middle, they're coming at the side.
And
That
both
would
of
make
them
more
and both of them fly, so it would be both of them kind of dive bombing from the sky to help him instead of, oh, we're on the ground, we gotta jump and do all these acrobatics around Captain America. So it's like they don't know the characters, they probably don't know, what's what. They just like, here's big bag of money, draw me a cover.
and
I don't care.
the
I
thing
don't care what's on it.
and also the body positioning.
Mhm.
um The only person whose body has any protection is Steve's right now. Iron Man is wide open, as is Carol,
Mhm.
you know. And anybody who's seen the movies and has read the books like I have, these guys are fast. And they one of the things they introduced in the third movie was the aliens can spit acid at you.
Hit
You know,
me, hit
yeah,
me. I want
yeah.
clothes. Hit me, hit me.
It,
At
it,
least,
it
at
there
least Steve's back is turned to be like, oh, he got me on my back, but I could come, backhand. I could do something in retaliation.
there's those are such vulnerable physical potentials. It's like, have you never done action artwork? Because like again, it's not very dynamic. You're sitting there going, it's a great primer on how not to do a cover. You
See,
know,
now I want to go back to that video, the video that most people hate, and it was a video with Stan Lee, with a young Todd McFarlane, and a very, very not even fresh out of high school um Liefeld. And they were up there at a drawing table and they was up here talking about, how editors will be like when it comes to like covers and artwork in a book. Instead, just lit into the drawing that both Todd and Rob was doing. And it almost got to the point where it's like it was almost like real life because he was up here trying to take the picture because they was about to get ready, they were about to get ready to do their own thing, later on. And it's like, why are there so many pockets? What's the whole purpose of the pockets? And this, that, and the other. It's like Stan was just going to town on that. It's like, but that doesn't happen nowadays. That doesn't happen nowadays because a lot of those comic book people who were old school editors are no longer around
they
to
were,
say that's not right. This not right. This doesn't fit. This doesn't fit. This doesn't feel like this. What goes now is whatever happens in focus groups. It's like the average person who loves a movie would look at this and be like, "Oh, this is great," but a comic book reader would look at this and be like, "What's this? This doesn't look right."
yeah. It's like, you know, um, I just read an article. I'm trying to remember where it was. It was either on Facebook or in LinkedIn, where they were talking about the woman who is now at the head of the Acolyte, the one who's running that production. She has been nominated for both a Nebula and a Hugo,
Mhm.
among other things. So she has got the chops. And, So people going, she doesn't know what she's doing. It's like I would more trust her than I would the head of Fox right now, you know, because so many of these people running the studios, and I'm getting the feel that, it's gone with the comics too, have never drawn a comic. They're running these massive corporations, but they actually don't understand the nuts and bolts of what it takes to physically produce this thing they're selling, which to me is very sad. Yeah, great. You got a bachelor's or a master's in economics or business management, but do you actually understand the business that you're running? Do you actually understand what it takes to produce this thing? They remind me of when I was in my first duty station was in North Carolina, Camp Lejeune, and we used to get what we would call boot Louis. And there were these guys who they went to officers candidate school, came out first lieutenants, and they had degrees, but they didn't know anything. It'd be like 80 something degrees. I'm in the molar pool taking batteries apart and whatnot. And some guy, because he got a master's or a bachelor's, got to be an officer, but doesn't know anything about the nuts and bolts of my job. And I was a driver, but every driver is required to understand first echelon maintenance. And
Mhm.
you're trying to do the job, and here's this idiot just all over you, asking you the dumbest questions, you know. And they'd be like, "Sir, can you go to the motor pool and ask the gunnery sergeant for a rubber wrench? I'd appreciate that." And off they'd go. You'd send them and off they'd go, and then they wouldn't come back to the motor pool because somebody would have to explain there's no such thing as a rubber wrench, okay?
Mhm.
Um, but these guys should be, before they can take these executive positions, they should be made to spend at least a year working with a crew on getting a book. If you're going to be the editor in charge, you should spend a year just working with the people who put it together. If that means you have to go sit, some writer has to come in there, you have to go in the meeting with the editor and the writer and the artist and the letterer, fine. But learn what it is they do and how they have to do it and have to get it together so you guys have that product to put out and they should be forced to take, there should be classes where it's like, okay, you're going to learn how to draw just a simple page. Here's an 11 by 17 Bristol board. Here's the pencil. Here's an eraser. you know, here's a pit pen or whatever. And you're going to draw a page. And you can make any page you want, just so they understand what it takes to create just a single page of a comic, or you know draw me a cover. This issue has to come out in the next month. You have a week. Draw me a cover.
A
You know,
week. A week. You got 2 days to draw me a cover.
I was trying to be nice.
No,
Okay.
I'm just putting it in realistic standpoint, because it's like everybody thinks that the timeline for a monthly comic is 30 days. It's like, no, it's less than a week and a half
Yeah.
in most cases. You're constantly working and slaving on a day-to-day basis. Most of the people who do penciling and inking at the bigger publishers normally output anywhere between 6 to 8 pages a day.
I couldn't. I look at that and it's like, oh, I could never apply for a job with any of these guys because it would kill me. I just if I think about the fact that I can't, I have aspects of my life where I have to stop. There are times of the day and days where I have to stop because there are things that I have to get done. I just can't sit there and put out 6 pages in a day. My youngest, it takes a lot to be able to say, hey, for the next 2, 3 hours, you can't come talk to me because I've got the show to do. You have to stay in a living room. You have to keep your TV down to this. You can't make your TV go above this. And you can't come in here. You can go through if you need to go to the kitchen, but you can't stop and talk to me or anything. You have to wait until I'm done because I got this to do, you know. And that's for him, that's a big ask because I will have days where I'm sitting here, I'm working on a commission. I'll have days where I'm sitting here and he'll decide, oh, he's got to talk, he's just been watching some cartoon, he's got to tell me everything about it. And it's like, I got headphones on, so I have to I turn off what I've got on, take out the headphones, listen to what he's got to say,
Hmm.
and then, and then go back and that can happen. That may happen only once in a day. That may happen throughout the day, and let's not get into house cleaning and laundry and getting groceries and all those other
The,
things. It's like
the,
I've I always envied the guys I went to film school with because they always had wives or girlfriends to take care of their lives for them so that they could go off and be filmmakers, you know. And because the year I was at school where I had friends taking care of my sons, it was like, wow. But it also wasn't easy because I had two small kids that I was constantly having to check on. And that was the year my grandma had her first stroke. So I was trying to balance going to school and doing assignments and stuff and still dealing with, you know, I have kids that I can't just ignore. My grandmother just had a stroke and she's like just a few miles from me. So it's like I always envied the guys I knew because none of that stuff seemed to affect them. Their wives took care of it, their girlfriends took care of it. It's like, wow. With nothing. I've decided if I make enough money, I'm going to find a guy that I can get some makeup on and a dress, and it's like you're going to be the wife. I'll,
okay.
you know, I'll go make. He's got to be pretty though. He can't look like crap. He's got to be pretty. But yeah, I want a guy I can make look like a wife, and he can handle all the life stuff, and then I can get up and work.
All right. And your thoughts about everything, Clyde?
Everything?
Everything, yeah, about the editing and all the other stuff, especially about the crux of the conversation.
Well, if you look
With
back at covers of the past, I mean,
Mhm.
there have been some times when, every title has had covers that you go, well, we talked about it before, some that don't really show what's in the issue. This scene is not in this comic, does not appear in this comic, warning. So there's a lot of ways it can go wrong, but stylization, is if you pick somebody to do a stylized cover and they made it look like a standard cover, you'd probably be disappointed. So I'm not familiar enough with the work of the person to know what their normal output is, but it definitely lacks as far as dynamics for comics. But um, there's one that I was looking at this week. I really like the story, but man, the cover, as far as the cover selling it, not so much. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Oh.
And you got a compliment on your shirt here, Clyde.
Oh, thank you. This
Oh,
is my second. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
This is a sci-fi kind of cover. It's
okay.
kind of interesting, but it doesn't really. It You have to know something about the story for it to make sense, and it just didn't really grab me. Of course, the whole art of this, it's a good science fiction story. The the art it's okay. It doesn't. It could have been better. It could have made the story much more galvanized. And it begins with the cover because I believe this is the same person that did the interior art also. Um, but it lacks a dynamic element to it. And some of those there's action scenes in here that are very dynamic. Why would you pick this over doing, or maybe if you had as far as I know, this was the only cover, but this, offer this as one, maybe, and then offer one that has more of an action sequence look to it, which matches the interior, um,
Okay.
a little bit more, and might sell it better. I don't know, but that would be my take.
Well, even with that cover, when you show me that cover and knowing that it's sci-fi,
Mhm.
having the extra face does not bring me into the story the way that it's like, okay, what's up with the false emotion? That would be the
Mhm.
first thing. And then what is this, circuit board light thing that she's holding? What's the significance of that? To me, it doesn't. I'll go like, okay, sci-fi book, meh, and toss it. Put it to the
Yeah,
side. It doesn't bring me into
and
the story.
see, that's the thing is, I find a lot of times I do my homework before I go to look at the rack, because I have gotten away from letting the cover dictate what I get very much.
Hmm.
That's a problem. That's an overall problem of you're not creating any excitement. We talk about that with, the plasma fire graphic covers all the time, but
Hmm.
that is somebody that knows how to generate interest and excitement, um, for the characters and the stories that book contains with presentation. And I find that a lot of the modern day comic books, whether it's a variant cover that is being funny, that's fine, but it doesn't necessarily sell the book to me. I can appreciate the cover and laugh at it, but a lot of the Disney doing Marvel stuff is that way, especially when it doesn't match what's in the book. You
Oh, don't get me started on the Spider-Man alternate covers that they did for the Disney 100 stuff. Oh my
know.
goodness.
Oh,
It's Captain Marvel #1. No, it's the Spider-Man book.
Well, it's like what I was talking about with that She-Hulk that Joe has for me. It doesn't happen exactly like that, but it gives you an idea of what's in the story. You see
mhm,
the Larry Flynn character, you see She-Hulk behind it. You get the idea that he's pulled something over on her. She's
mhm,
not happy about it. I wanted just seeing that character, him going, "Hey, guess what I did to She-Hulk?"
mhm,
Um, was like, okay, I want to see this. I want to see how this story pans out because obviously, you know, he's pissed her off in a really big way. And it's like, okay, how is she going to deal with this?
mhm.
Mhm. You get that from that cover, even with the speech bubbles and everything. But there's another example, and this is something that I can say that kind of half did it well.
Okay.
Let's take a look at Destro 1.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. He's sitting on the throne. You can see all that
Mhm,
destruction underneath him, all the destruction behind him. Like, yeah, I've run this.
All the
I won.
weaponry and destructions and the broken devices, and he has a golden rifle with a bayonet, and he's sitting there like, what next?
True
Who's
story. When I
next?
walked into the comic shop, I wasn't sure I was going to get this. I had it written down as a check it out. That was the cover that was on the rack, the front cover, in front. And yeah, when I saw that cover, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to pick this up.
Now I
Yeah.
could show you some of the other ones that they did here because I got the B cover, and this is the alternate cover for this.
Mhm.
This one does not tell as much of a story, but you can get the idea behind it.
It's kind of like it's an origin story, is what it feels like. This is how he became the man. At least that's what the art says to me because it's him. He's standing there with the gun, but there's the image behind him.
Right, that's Cobra Commander. That's
Okay.
Cobra Commander and everything, and you have to understand that the way Cobra was, it's like technically Destro was never truly a faction up under Cobra Commander. Technically, they were supposed to be equal partners,
Ah,
but
okay.
yet Commander overshadows him.
Yeah, I
But
see that because
but
his
that's
he's
knowing GI
scared.
Joe history. That's knowing GI Joe history, where I could look at the cover and get that from them. But the average person would not get the same feel to pick up this book like they would with this one. This one is like, oh yes, I gotta see what makes him the man here.
Yeah, because it's like no matter what they threw at me, I came out on top.
Right. This one is kind of like how you said, it might be an origin story. What's the whole deal with the guy behind him? May not be enough to pull somebody in. And Clyde, would this cover have pulled you in if you would have saw this one first as opposed to the other one?
No, but when I they had pulled my books and I had
Mhm.
that one written down as a let me look at it, and so the one that they pulled for me was that cover that you're holding now,
Mhm.
and I didn't dislike it enough. I'd already seen the other one, made up my mind, and then when I saw that one, I'm like, okay. I mean, it didn't matter to me so much then. The one was the deciding factor. That one, I'm like, okay, I'll take that one. That's fine.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
but
as good, but
that got
that was
you like,
okay.
oh yeah, now
Yeah.
I'm going to take a look at it after you saw it.
Yep. Yep.
But it goes to show you that coverage can go a long way, and I as much as I argue with people, and I argue this a lot with independent creators. Everybody wants to put art before the story, and it's like, no, art can only get you so far. Art might get people in the seats, but the thing about it is you want to keep them in their seats.
Yeah.
If you got their attention for 5 seconds and the story is not there, guess what? They're gone and lost forever. Triple sorry, Clementine. you know.
Now, speaking of covers,
Yep.
and thank you, comment on the shirt. This is my
Mhm.
$4 secondhand shop shirt purchase for today.
Mhm.
But
Ooh.
this is done like to me, it reminded me of an old Marvel Star Wars cover,
Mhm.
kind of a style but with
Yeah.
Grogu.
Mhm.
But have you guys ever seen this shirt before? Because I have
No, that's the
not.
first time I ever
No.
saw this shirt.
Okay. Okay. But I was really tickled with it, and when they said $4, I'm like, sold. All right, thank you. I don't have a Grogu shirt. I do now.
Well, sometimes they do artwork for a shirt. It may have been something it may have been a giveaway at a convention.
Could be.
And
Could be.
then whoever got the shirt they took care of it because
Mhm.
it's not cracked and whatnot. They obviously
Mhm.
took really good care of it. The black has not faded.
And it
But
says issue 23, which of course there's no issue 23 of a Mandalorian comic book, but it also has as the comic company Child, which doesn't ring. I mean, none of that is any kind of even like a um, a shirt company online that sells novelty shirts. I not seen anything.
this feels like a Disney joint. This feels like
Oh
something that
no.
Disney may have done and given away at New York or San Diego or something like that.
Hmm.
And someone got it. Maybe they got it for a kid or somebody because they saw it, they picked it up, decided that they didn't like it, got rid of it.
Hmm.
You know, or maybe somebody who they saw it was a cute shirt, thought, "Ooh, I'll take it home," and then got home and somebody pointed out, there's no Mandalorian comic, right? And there's, and Child is not a comic company. you know, I mean, I from where I'm sitting, it looks almost good as new.
Yeah,
So it
yes.
obviously wasn't something that someone wore a lot.
But I like the idea that it's not one that I think I can wear it probably, and people will go, I've never seen that shirt before. So
What size do you wear? Are you a medium?
I can wear, it depends on the shirt. I've got to where I go with large just so that if it shrinks a little bit, it's not too tight. Um, I used to do medium all the time, but then I started getting shirts um, that were one after one wash, they were tight. I don't like my clothes to be loose and comfortable. So I go with large most of the time.
Eric, Joe, we have to go to Clyde's house because I have to beat him up and take that shirt.
No, you could go. I if you just need bus fare, I'll figure out something where you go to get your bus fare. You can go ahead and do it because I don't lay hands on people like that.
Oh, you don't have to do it. I'll do all the beating up. John would really love that shirt. I got to
Ah,
get it.
there you go.
That's by the same artist here, so he has done comic book covers before, but
It's not his first
even
rodeo,
even
is
when I
it?
look at this, it's like Thing is not Thing. That's just some rock creature.
Oh, yeah,
That's not the ever loving blue eyed Thing.
That's
yeah,
Bucktrick.
it's not the right text. It's not the right texture. At least from this distance, it doesn't look like the right texture.
All right, so I'm looking at what Leia was saying or Parallax was saying about this. It's like, oh, he does covers before. I was like, oh,
Could be
why
two
does
other
this look kind
factors.
of off?
Could be two other factors that we're not thinking of because it doesn't have anything to do with the compositions and the final product. But does this artist know somebody? Somebody in charge that's given the green light that they've got some sway with. Two, are they somebody who not necessarily big in comic books, but has a fan following where they know that they will sell, X amount of books with this person's name on it?
Ah, okay. I hadn't thought about
Mhm.
that. Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
and
I
so
mean,
big artist.
even with that being said, it's still if you're selling books based upon somebody's name, we're out of the day and age of that, to be quite
Mm,
honest.
I don't
Because
know.
when you look at back in the 90s and early 80s and the 70s, that sold a lot of books. If I knew that John Byrne was going into another X-Men book with Claremont, oh, I'm on that all day, every day. If that happened today, I will be quite leery because I'll be up here. It's like, well, who's the editor? What are they going to be doing differently that they haven't done?
Mhm.
There's a lot of other questions here. This is another cover that he did here, and you could kind of see, you know, he it's a completely different influence, but he is a digital painter. I could tell that he's a digital painter, and just things
Why
just
does
look
Spider-Man
off.
always? Why does Spider-Man always have to have his legs open like that? It looks like he's about to go in for a gynecological exam. Every time you see Spider-Man, whether he's
Oh,
upright
that,
or
no,
upside down, his legs are spread.
Ray about to
I'm
get me
like, is
started.
that is
You,
is is that some sort of, softcore porn thing
Yeah.
that
I
I'm
don't I don't know, but again, I don't want to get into that particular argument right now because that question that you just asked is the same question that I asked about the band Spider Woman cover that what's his name? Milo something.
the one that had her head down and her butt in the air, and she's on all fours.
Same pose that Peter did. Peter has done that pose before. But because it was Jessica Drew and it was done by somebody that was known to do pornographic art, there was a big major problem. Milo Manera. Because Milo Manera did it, oh, it has to be canceled. It got to get banned. But yet, Peter has done this pose several times on covers and in the actual series itself. Just because it's Jessica Drew, it's sexualized. Hmm.
Well,
In-
there are. Well, you know what? I saw somebody, and I wish I could have saved it. Because it was addressing the Brokeback art
yep.
that
Spider booty is prevalent in Amazing Spider-Man 30 by J. Scott Campbell.
but they were addressing the Brokeback um, pose that they used to. X-Men was rife with it. They would always have the fighting pose, and the women would be in that Brokeback. And it's like, as someone who's had to throw a punch and take a few in her life, that position is not going to work other than make you end up on the floor. You can't bend your back that way and be able to take a punch. You're so off. It's such an yeah, it makes the booty look good, but if you're fighting and these women are fighters, you can't fight in that position. You're not your body isn't you're not angled and you're not grounded and you're not balanced. But somebody had this great idea of what if we drew male superheroes the way they draw female superheroes. And somebody drew the Hulk with his back to the camera and he's looking back at the camera and he's got his hands on his butt, so he's like spreading the cheeks. And I just remembered seeing that and could not stop laughing.
It's
It's like,
silly.
hey.
But that's the thing. It's kind of silly because a lot of times they have done that before. And that's what I say. It's like you're really not proving a point. The point that you should be making is why are they marketing this stuff this way more so towards one type of collector as opposed to everybody? That's
Yeah.
the bigger question. Because it's not the pose that made the Milo Manera cover what it was. It was the simple fact that it was his name and what he was known for. If any other artist would have turned in that cover, we would have had a blind, people would have had a blind eye to it.
Well, when you get up and say, hey, a known foreign artist is going to draw a Spider Woman, it does kind of, because as a woman enjoying the comic, it's like, well, is it necessary? Is it needed? It's like I said, when I look at the pictures of Peter as Spider-Man, and it's like, are those the only poses that they know for Spidey? Either upside down or right side up, and his legs are just like, Spider. Sometimes it's like, eventually that's got to be uncomfortable.
Well,
Constantly do
it
that.
is, but it also a couple other things here. One, they don't show where his, if you could say, the thing that would be protruding really
Yeah,
lies at, because again, he might be
Peter
wearing a
doesn't have
cup,
a
he might be
crotch.
wearing all this other stuff. I mean, but again, I'm just going to go there because again, if your legs are that wide open and everything, that stuff would be visible if drawn to actual specs, if I could say it in
Peter
those words.
Peter Parker is flat as a board in that area. He's either very shadowed or he's flat as a board. As someone who has grown up reading Spider-Man, there
Right.
just is nothing there.
But we
Peter's
know in real life it is not flat or
but
something that
but
is there.
but if you
But
look at a lot of superhero comics, especially from when I was a girl, they didn't draw superhero guys with any sort of noticeable bulges. It was the thing. I think in also because when I was a kid, they had the comics code, and also I know Burt Ward talked about when they were doing Batman that they used to make him wear a special type of underwear that would pull him in more because
yep.
they didn't want to show too much there. And he was saying it was very that costume was very uncomfortable for him because of that. But they were always saying, "Oh, well, there's a moral code, and we have to be careful about what can and can't be seen or suggested."
And again, I go right back to pro wrestling. Same thing happened in pro wrestling. You can't wear that type of skivvies without seeing something. So they have to wear something to make it less revealing.
Well, even it wasn't just wrestling, but bodybuilders. Bodybuilders. I actually.
Well, you can't say bodybuilders anymore.
Oh, that's right. You can't say that anymore. But back in the day, children, we're getting back in the Wayback Machine. What we
No.
refer
I'm just
to
saying
as
back then I can't say
bodybuilders.
that anymore because now bodybuilding is not in the public eye as far as
The way
as being televised. Oh, you don't want to see some of the male bodybuilders because their stuff hangs all over the place in those outfits.
they don't manscape anymore either. I've been told that they don't manscape.
Manscaped and it was like one that was a power lifter. You swear that he's carrying around a boat anchor.
You have any pictures you could send me?
No, I delete those type of images from my brain. It just only comes back as, oh yeah, there are people that are that way. Just know that there are people that are that way.
I'm picturing
You don't
Elaine
want you
later
don't you
tonight
don't
after
want
the
you don't
show
want
going
mental
boat
vivid pictures
anchor
of that type of stuff anymore.
bodybuilder.
But they used to have these movies back in the day. They were Italian, and I always thought they were softcore porn for women. Then somebody explained actually they're made more towards men. Um, there used to be a series of movies called Son of Hercules. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
heard of those guys. There were always some Son of Hercules movies, and they would always end up this Son of Hercules type of theme song,
The
and
more
it
the
was
more of the homoerotic type.
yes, except I didn't understand what homoerotica was as an 8-year-old. I was just going, ah, Masha, and they were all flat. They were flat in that area. They would be running around in these little loincloths and stuff, but they were flattened or very well covered, so you didn't see anything. But whenever I think of the the way covers have evolved, I always
Mm.
think poor Peter. Poor Peter. Because on the one hand, it's like he's sexualized, but at the same time, kind of eunuch. you know?
But that goes to the point I was making about the whole argument about sexualization. It's like you just can't have it for one side and not have it for all. And that's the major problem with it. It's like you can't go around having people like Bruce Banner Hulk, you know, oh, I'm this 8 foot tall guy with all of this uber muscle and I'm supposed to be a hero. It's like with the average guy is not that way. And a lot of the poses and stuff is, like you said, it could be either homoerotic or erotic for women or all this other stuff. But yet those who were in the early 2000s kept picking out the things about women. And it's like, well, if you want to do it, let's talk about it all. Let's talk about it all. Maybe we
But
need to get
also,
away from the actual erotic fantasies that comes along with comics. Is that what you really want to talk about? Let's then. If not,
well, it
then
would be
let it
nice.
be. It's imagination. Nobody's getting hurt.
Well, for girls, it's kind of, it continues to push off that impossible physique.
Mhm.
And it's interesting having read comics from the 60s and even today, it's interesting watching what the female idealization has been because back in the day, you know, it was tig old bitties for days, slim everywhere else, but she was like 46 triple D. Um, except for Lois because Lois had to get in and out of tight spots and too much girliness would have just stopped her in that regard. But and I always thought Power Girl was kind of a joke for that because she had the impossible titties. But in the 60s and 70s, the women were curvy. They were very, very curvy women, you know. And then there was this point in the 90s where suddenly they were pencil thin, you know, nowhere, not much up here, not much back there. They were almost, and I'm thinking about reading through the X-Men and whatnot. They were almost pencil thin, few with any curves. You may have had Psylocke, but she was like the pinup girl. But there is a time in the 80s where it's like okay, they look more like adolescent boys than they do females. We've gone from one extreme to the other extreme, and now we're kind of like, okay, where are we going now? What are you guys going to be doing? I figure 10 years from now it'll change again. Because we went from ridiculous curves to something a little more sensible to no curves at all to now we're going back towards ridiculous curves. I just saw the somebody posted yesterday about the new Laura Croft thing, and I guess the boys were. One guy called her personality flatter than a tomboy, and the thing is, well, she still has breasts. They just don't look like they're gonna topple her over.
Hmm.
You know, it's just
See,
they're
this
more
is
normal.
the,
You know,
the,
and as someone who's had to train with both a rifle and a handgun, too much up here, when you've got to pull forward to aim, you can't have a lot blocking your arm, you know? So the heavier you are up here, the harder it's going to be to handle your weapon properly. So, and she's supposed to be someone who is adept at weapons. So, yeah, you can't make her too busty because that could cause the problem,
well, that's
you know?
where I was about to kind of bring in Clyde because since you went through the decades, 30s, 40s, and 50s, if I remember correctly, Clyde, most of those artists had references because I go back to thinking about Big Barda was based upon a actual actress. A lot of the women that were well known in comic books were modeled after real women. It wasn't until like the 60s and 70s that they kind of went away from it a little bit. They kind of held that tradition, but they went away from it. They either exaggerated to a certain degree. When we got to the 90s went back to reference, but you also have to look at the references that we had then. We were in the day and age of a lot of plastic surgery, a lot of people also modifying the stuff. But what
Mhm.
the problem is, it's like those references that they pull from are not the everyday soldier that, like you said, with the handgun and everything. They're not thinking about that. They're just thinking about the aesthetic of how something may look, as opposed to practicality of can this person actually do a cartwheel without knocking herself out? You know, 90s was a weird age in that aspect here. And then you get to the early 2000s, like you said, everything went to more of a boyish, pencil straight thin, everything looks like, a prepubescent boy, and people started to complain, especially with the movement about over sexualization. And I was like, okay, if things are over sexualized, then why isn't there more talk about over sexualization of, oh, we got a character that grows completely out of his clothes and pretty much runs around butt naked except for having the little short shorts on from where the remnants of his pants still covered them. Or the guy that flips all over the air off of a web of string, and his legs are wide open and everything, and he can lay right on top of somebody with the legs still open, but that's not sexualized. But somebody throwing her hips to the left or to the right, oh, that's over sexualized. Or, oh, this is supposed to be a 16-year-old girl, but she got double D breasts. It's like there are girls that do have that problem right now. How is that over sexualized, especially if they're just standing there in a neutral pose?
It's if it's like I said, if it's a neutral pose, I can get it. But when it's the whole, she's supposed to be fighting, she's got one arm this way, the other arm is that, and her back is at such an angle where all you really have to do is go, and she'd go over. That is when it's like, okay, that makes no sense. As someone who's had to take fighting classes and whatnot, that pose makes no sense. And I often think, oh, maybe they're not, because it's like, I guess, and I'm spoiled, yes, because I grew up in the age of Frazetta, and I for the longest time wanted to grow up being built like a Frazetta girl. I wanted
Yeah, I found fallacy with Frazetta girls.
You don't like
Because Frazetta girls to me would not be able to actually wield a actual broadsword the way that broadswords were built. I'm sorry,
well,
they don't
a
have
lot
enough
of men, a lot of men,
health and weight on their mat, on their actual body mass to wield it the way that it's supposed to be wielded.
Well,
There's a
Rosetta
a
didn't
suspicion,
draw.
a belief that has to go along with it. But
Yeah,
that's
but
just the way
Rosetta
that it is.
didn't draw a lot of sword women. Rosetta's women, um, he didn't draw a lot of sword women. If he drew, I remember a pen and ink he did of Elf Queen, um, and she didn't have a broad sword. Her sword was more in keeping with her height and build, you know. And she also, because she was a fighter, she wasn't, and he also put her in armor.
Mhm.
So she had a full, it was short pants, but she had a full breastplate on. So her chest was protected. But you know, it's interesting what you're saying about the sword though, because some of the people through the ages who've drawn Red Sonja, growing up reading Red Sonja, um, there are times when I've looked at the artists who've drawn her and gone, dude, did you not at least you know, get a model and have her pose so you could see how a woman of that stature and build is going to stand with the sword, or if she can even heft it, you know, because even if she can heft it the way a woman would heft a battle axe, because the builds are different, the musculature is different. It's not that they can't do it, but a woman will heft the battle axe differently than a man will, and her axe is not going to be, I always scream at boys who talk about, well, why is Anduril so big? Why does it have such a long handle? It's like because Isildur stood 7 feet tall, you know. That's why that sword looks like two people could hold it, because he was 7 friggin' foot tall, and the blade was broken, not the handle. So that's why that sword is the way it is, and that's why Vigo had to have a specific version of that sword made just for his fight scenes, because if he had to use that hero sword for those fight scenes, he would have fallen over and
Mhm.
passed out about a third of the way through, because that's a lot of heft. And every time you've got to swing or parallel or whatever, you're fighting gravity's pull on that weapon. Because as I'm getting this book done, I'm also working out ideas for my next comic series. It's like Wakanda in space, but I'm having to think, okay, what weapons, are these women using swords? What do their weapons look like? Are they wearing armor? How to do armor that makes sense, you know? So it's like, okay, this is not going to be a book that a lot of guys are going to buy, because it isn't going to be women in tight black leather that does not breathe.
Mhm.
Leather doesn't breathe. And if you're trying to flip and jump and move and stuff in something that doesn't breathe, within 30 minutes, you've sweat off about 10 pounds and you're exhausted. You're off in the side going, ah, 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 because your body, you're not, all that sweat is being contained in your suit. And so you're not really wicking away that moisture. You're just heating up and heating up, So it's why, okay, that's why, even if she's got her neckline dipped all the way down to below her breastbone, that outfit for Black Widow doesn't make sense because it's not a breathable fabric. She's going, she's going to have heat stroke if she goes. It's like, yeah, there's a reason she couldn't wear that outfit in Africa. She'd have had the heat stroke in like 5 minutes of fighting. She would have passed out, and that would have been the end of it. But I'm having to think of those things of how do you make it sense? And I'm realizing I'm going to have to, if I want it to make sense, I'm going to have to lean more in the way of making sense and not being sexy. So it's like, okay, this is not going to be a book that The only guys I know who will read it will be you guys because you'll read it being kind to me, right?
I'm kind.
Well, it's just like prime time Saturday night. As much as I have to justify characters like Jugs and why her anatomy is a little bit different. It's like, yeah, she has the breast size that she has, but she's heavier and a lot
She's
more
more
muscular and for her height, and it makes sense. And everybody's like, no, it doesn't. She's 5'2". It's like, yeah, she's 5'2" and close to 280. She's pure muscle, except for that up there. And if I told you her full anatomy history, medical wise, it makes perfect sense.
yeah, but then you have to do things like before Hugh Jackman got the part, Wolverine was 5'4". And
Mhm.
the only adult superhero shorter than Wolverine was Puck from Alpha Flight.
Well, Puck was technically over 6 foot tall before the thing happened to him to shrink him down to that.
But you get what I'm saying.
Hmm.
He's condensed,
Hmm.
but even so, they had to condense him in a way that made sense with all that mass and stuff. Yeah, Kurt is around the same height as Wolverine, but he also is a much slimmer character. Because people forget Nightcrawler is not 6 foot something. He and Wolverine classically were about the same height because I remember several drawings of those. Wolverine used to call him Elf, and they would spend lots of time when they weren't fighting, sitting in the dining room, enjoying a couple of beers and some stogies.
I, I feel
But
bad leaving Clyde out of this conversation here.
oh, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to figure out a way to figure out how to make it make sense, how to make it balance, and the characters, because I'm realizing all of my female characters are going to have to be who are in this specific way of being are going to have to be 5'11" or taller
Why?
because of what they do and how they do it. There's a specific group of women for whom and they breed themselves to keep that particular height, like Amazon.
Well,
You
that's
know,
that's the first thing that came to my mind. It's like, why are you making them like Amazons? It's like there have to be there has to be a particular lineage that goes along with it to make it make sense. But that's a topic for another day here. We
it's
are
a
at the
breeding.
2 hour mark, and I'm
Oh
wondering
no,
if we have any reviews here.
Clyde! I told you you have my review time.
Yeah.
Well, review time was about like 30 minutes to 45 minutes ago. So that's why I feel like we gotta keep going here.
I know where you live. Stop. Clyde has my
Well,
review.
um, I got a book in this
Yay,
week.
you
Ooh,
got it.
Thank you,
You
Joe. Yep,
got
it
it.
just
Yep.
came today. And
yay!
yes, this is. I don't have a lot of Wonder Woman comics from the early '60s like this, so my wife has a collection of Wonder Woman books, and this is the oldest that we have, but it is. We kind of lacked those early '60s issues with um, Ross Andrew, um, and I like the look of Wonder Woman at this point. It was before that she became Diana um, from the Avengers. It was before she lost her powers.
Mhm.
Um, this is kind of the last classic look with her the eagle emblem on her chest and everything. So it kind of
And hot
epitomizes.
pants.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the
And hot
bloomers.
pants.
Yep, and the bloomers. Yeah, and
She
the
had the
bloomers.
boomers.
Yeah. So just because it represents her in a way that was classic, but was very soon to change, I was really happy to get that. So thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate it.
Cool.
Not a problem. That was like one of what 4 different copies of that one that I have. I
Yeah.
had like 4 copies of that issue, so
Yeah.
was happy.
It's 136 if anybody wants to look it up online and see. Now, I showed you I got
Did you
this
read the
the other day.
story as of yet? Did you read that story as of yet?
Not
That
yet.
was also a weird story too.
Well,
about
I got the
how
feeling
the
it was kind of
aliens
like
fed her, fed that one thing into her to cause her to.
well, I got the feeling it was Kaiju Wonder Woman from from what I scanned it real fast just to see how long and it's the whole it's one of those things too. It's the whole issue. It's not like a little short, like a little backup story or feature.
Hmm.
It's the whole issue is the new story. So that's cool. But I told you guys I got this when I was at Metropolis because it was a comic book that scarred me because of, Superman dies and they take out his organs and then criminals steal them and Lex Luthor auctions them off and um, they have criminals then with super vision and super lungs and super powered hands and a super heart. Um, so that was the first part one because it's a two-part story. So I had to go get the other one because its cover is even more problematic. It's got all the villains there with the, you know,
Oh, that
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
yeah. And only, the only one that can stop them apparently because the Justice League doesn't seem to be able to. I'm like, where are
I
they
mean,
at?
he literally
Because
shattered his leg in that cover. I just
well,
realized that's a frightening thought. It's like it's not like he just punched his leg and it's making a power. He shattered
no,
his leg.
this is a tribute statue to the memory
Oh,
of Superman.
Oh,
oh,
They're
okay.
destroying the monument to him, but still, and here comes Batman and Robin. Yeah, they're the ones I want to face off against criminals that have heat
Well,
vision and super
oh
breath,
yeah,
and
he's pregnant. The guy in
yeah,
the green and orange is pregnant.
he's just fat. He's just, it's they're bad guys, but because they have powers now, they feel that they must dress like the good guys or the villains that have uniforms. So yeah, but
Oh,
it's just disturbing on all sorts of
he just
levels.
got a big old fist on his chest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I just realized that. I like that. He got a
yep,
big old fist on his chest. It's like
yep,
that's what my power is.
yep.
I got the heads of Superman. Big old
Not
fist.
I have not seen this kind of subtlety since they redid all of the Blackhawks, into
Yeah.
superhero Blackhawks in
Hmm.
about the same time period. So, but yeah, as a kid, this, I was disturbed by the first issue. The second issue, because I got both of them. I don't, it wasn't like it drove me away from getting the books. It just I had them for years going, okay, this is a really sick, twisted story, especially considering, just like Elaine was talking about earlier, there was somebody that said, well, this is okay by the Comics Code approval. Absolutely, we could do this. It's fine. Now, my daughter got me something this week that I was proud of. I wanted to show off. And Brittany, if you're watching, thank you so much again. But um, I used to work midnights all the time, and I got the nickname of Captain Midnight. And
Oh, okay.
one of my friends, um,
oh,
he's 88 years old this year, and he said I would use it on pictures and stuff on my profile on Facebook, and finally he goes, "Are you a Captain Midnight fan?" And I was like, "Well, I know who he is. I've listened to a few radio shows. I can't say I'm a fan, but I use it because I work nights." Well, a while back, he was getting rid of some of his old childhood collections, and he was a big
oh,
fan of Captain Midnight.
Captain
So
May.
he gave me this 1942 little Captain Midnight book. So I had been on the
Cool.
lookout. I had been on the lookout for that kind of stuff, and my daughter wanted to know for Father's Day what I wanted. So this is an
Captain.
actual Captain Midnight decoder badge.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
I can now drink my Ovaltine because it tells me that I need to.
Drink for
I need to.
Ovaltine.
That's right. But look how shiny. Look how shiny that is. That's got to be from either the 40s, late 40s, or early 50s.
Wait a minute, I thought Little Orphan Annie was the drink more Ovaltine
Well,
one.
it
Did they
is, but
also see Captain
it's the
Midnight?
it's the same idea. They would send you notes like that. And then she got me um, what they call the spinner pin. It's not a pin. It's actually a medallion, but it's
Ooh.
basically you're part of Captain Midnight's secret squadron. See, and
Ooh.
again, this is from 1940, so it's even older than that little book. But look at how beautifully
Yeah, that is well
preserved
preserved.
that is. Yeah. So thank you, my daughter, kept me in mind and got me cool collectible things. But on to comics. So I picked this up. We talked about it last week, and you were talking about a $7.99 book. I didn't get it because it was $7.99, and I wasn't sure the Infinity Dime and Uncle Scrooge would be good. I still don't think it's worth. It's probably a $5.99 book. It does have
Okay.
it does have a lot of pages, but half of them are a reprint of the original Uncle Scrooge comic. So that's classic. But I don't know. A half a new book, I think $5 or $6.99 maybe. I think it's a little high.
Okay.
It is a fun story, and it folds in with the that origin story of Uncle Scrooge very well. So, and you can tell there's a lot of love that went into making it. The artwork is different than the classic sorts of stuff, but I like it. It is
Oh wow.
Clyde,
it's a multiverse story of different Scrooges,
Clyde,
Oh.
different Uncle
Why?
Scrooges. Mhm.
Clyde. I will be reading it soon.
Okay. Okay. I won't go into big detail, but um, it's not bad. It's a pretty high cover price for half of a reprint. So
It probably is. It probably is. It is steep, but again, for the reprint of actual Scrooge one, I would go
Mhm.
ahead and do it.
and being a Ducks fan like you are, yeah, absolutely worth the price. I'm just not that big. I like Uncle Scrooge and the Ducks, but I'm not I'm not a fan like you are. So Joe, um, so they have a new Black Label book from DC, Zatanna, Bring Down the House. This is really different. I like Zatanna a lot, and this alludes to something that happened in her childhood that has made her swear off using magic as an adult. Um, I don't know where it fits into regular continuity or if it does, but it's that element of it is she's doing card tricks in Vegas. I mean, she doesn't promote herself as a magician or doing magic because she just does tricks.
Is
And mhm, what?
is that a Jacqueline De Leon cover? Is she doing the artwork for that book?
Let me see here. So we have cover by Javier Rodriguez with variant covers by Stanley Artgerm Lau and George Jimenez.
Oh, okay.
And the interior art is Javier Rodriguez. So, and it's written by Mariko Tamaki. So I'll show you
Okay.
some of the
Jack
artwork on the inside.
Jacqueline De Leon is an artist I follow on YouTube, and there's a Zatanna graphic novel that's out, and she did the covers for it
Oh, okay.
as well as the art.
There gets you an idea what the interior artwork looks like. But it's a weird take on the character. So I will be getting more of it to see where they go with it. So we had Gotcha Man #1.
Oh, it came out. Yes.
Yes.
Yep. And now you speak about a cover that kind of works because of what it is. I mean, the topic and all,
Mm-hmm.
but there's some good cover work, I think, for what it is.
Yeah.
Wouldn't work with everything, but that's very true to the spirit of the original stuff. So this is taken from the Japanese version,
Yes.
and I really, really like it. It has a lot of action, but it also has a good story behind it. It's a good combination of both, and here you got a little bit of, they don't make a
Cool.
splash page every little bit, but when they do, yeah, that's exciting to me.
The guys who were publishing this were at C2E2, and
Okay.
they had a little giveaway thing that I got for Gotcha Man.
Mhm.
Because back in the day, Gotcha Man was here known as Battle of the Stars,
Battle of the
Battle
Planets.
of the Planets.
Battle of the
Mhm.
Planet. Sorry,
Yes.
and I was really into it. And of course, now it's Voltron. It's the series
Um,
Voltron. But
right.
yeah,
It's
that
beta test for it, but Mad Cave Studios is the comic company, and they are worth keeping an eye on because they they have come out with some very good things the last year and a half. They're not as highly rated as they don't put out as much. They're not as highly rated as some of the other not big two companies or not big three companies, but the stuff that they do, most of it I have been very impressed by, and this is added to that stack. Um, Dark Horse and James Tynan the fourth concluded this Blue Book 1947, and this is if you like UFOlogy, and you know I don't know how this will set. This is a really good perspective of beginning with the sighting by a pilot in 1947 of UFOs, what became known as unidentified flying objects, around Mount Rainier. Kenneth Arnold was a pilot, and he saw these strange things flying in formation, and that began the whole flying saucer craze.
Yeah.
1947 had other sightings. Well, this series, and this is the last issue of it, number 5, but it takes you from that initial thing, and that guy, Arnold's investigation. He was former military, and so he started his own investigation, trying to figure out what it was, all the way through additional sightings, some hoaxes, some experimental aircraft, some Cold War politics that are a facade that has to be put up because of sensitive international goings on. It's very balanced. It calls out people that added stuff to the element of UFOlogy that's very poorly substantiated. It became part of the lore, and now it's fixed in there. But he also calls out, like in Project, it takes it all the way up through the different military and Air Force projects dedicated to investigating them, from Project Grudge, Project Saucer, and then to the one that we always think of as Project Blue Book. And the person, it lauded the person that was in charge of Project Blue Book for standardizing the forms and the questions asked, trying to actually come up with answers. Although the Cold War kind of, all of them fought between people in the military that wanted to know what it was, up to and including some kind of life form that we don't understand, to the ones that were very much going, if you don't know what it is, it's not ours, it's Russian, period. Or civilians are unreliable, you can't believe anything they say, as far as an eyewitness report or anything. So it kind of chronicles that, but it doesn't really tell it in story form. It's very dry. It's very clinical, and how the whole series is very clinical about how it does that. So I don't know. I had read some of these accounts before, so I knew some of the details. But what the perspective we get in this series is, this happened, and it led to that happening, which led to this happening by the military, which led to kind of a domino effect, a cause and effect. I don't think I've ever seen that done before. So to me, it was very interesting. I used to really have an interest in UFOs, and this kind of rekindled that, especially with some of the military, the reports that they have published and things, and some of the footage that they have shown in the last few years. But I will recommend it. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but if you like UFOs, if you're familiar with some of the cases, you probably will find some things to like in this.
There's a couple of series, one of which, and I can't remember the title right now, I've watched on Netflix
Mhm.
that covered a lot of the Project Blue Book investigations, which I've always found interesting, and that would be good for me to get, just because if you're writing about, okay, if you have these aliens to come to Earth
Mhm.
and they're supposed to be living on Earth, how did they get here and get
Mhm.
themselves set up without anybody, And it's like, okay, well, if they came in the 70s, and they appear to be Black women, it would have been easier to get a few things done and whatnot. Especially if there were people who were already here, maybe observing things, that would have been able to say, okay, we can get you fake paperwork and IDs and stuff, so you can blend in. But that's always good. The researcher in me just want to have that, just so I can
Well, Elaine, you and I, people of our generation, we know how to detect aliens, right? We saw the invaders, right?
have. Yeah.
Hey, Tynan also did last year. He did a 5-issue series, and it also called Blue Book. It was the first volume. This one, Blue Book, 1947, second volume. The first volume chronicled the case of Betty and Barney Hill.
That name, those names are familiar. I just
Okay,
write off.
they were the couple that were abducted. They said,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they went through hypnotherapy to recount and remember details that had been apparently scrubbed from their memory, and that was a good refresher. I'd read those accounts, so I was very familiar with that case, but that was a good refresher. And there were details I had forgotten about it. So again, it's very clinical. In their case, there's more of a story with individuals. In the 1947, you get little snippets of individuals, but the cast changes all the time. So
Well, I
uh,
always found it interesting that uh, it's Trump that started Space Force. And it's like, okay, why? That's the question I would love to ask is
mhm,
because he made such a big deal of it,
yeah.
of not just starting it. It is now an official branch of the military
Hmm.
with all of this and everything. So it's like, oh, great. So, and there is that part of me that's like, of all the things you could have did, you know, and
Hmm.
because this was something was like his whole heart was in pushing this and getting it started and getting it through and making sure Congress allowed for it and everything. He was all up in him for this. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay. And for me, growing up as a kid and watching One Step Beyond and all of that, I guess for me, I've always believed that we're not the only ones here.
Hmm.
And there's no way we could be here and not have somebody who is more advanced checking up on us like a kid with an ant farm. Um,
or or just for like so that they can take film and show it on, like we do cat videos. They probably have human videos on their world, so
hopefully,
for their
hopefully,
amusement.
hopefully better resolution. Hopefully with much better resolution because all of those films that I've ever seen footage of, it's like you couldn't find better resolution for your. It's like
Mm,
all this stuff we got AI. You can't give this to AI and let it sort it out. Come on
mm, yeah, yeah,
now.
true. And back in the day when we were thinking about Bigfoot and UFOs and cryptids and things, it was like if only they'd had a camera to record this amazing. Everybody's got a camera now, and I don't see any more believable footage coming out. Usually, sometimes maybe, but for the amount of cameras that are out there now, it
Yes.
doesn't seem to be in
Can,
proportion with really
can,
good
can,
high quality video of anything.
may I address one thing here?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Since Elaine brought it up here,
Mhm.
my understanding of Space Force is more based upon mission statement than anything else. Because you can't really have it as Air Force because in our mission statement for the Air Force, we're only allowed to exploit space, not to, explore into that magnitude. So our exploitation of space will only cover what goes on this planet, not beyond. So
Yeah.
that's the whole my understanding of Space Force of why Trump did Space Force the way that he did as a separate branch. It's the mission itself. Just kind of like how NASA is not 100% part of Air Force, even
Mm.
though it's part of the exploitation of space more so than
Like,
anything else.
well,
The mission
NASA
is
grew out
different.
of the Air Force.
Hmm?
If you think NASA grew out of the Air Force.
Just like how Space Force grew out of the Air Force as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Air Force gives birth to a lot of interesting stuff.
Hmm. Okay. Well, um, we had the third issue of is that right? Yeah, Creature of Universal Monsters, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and this is a continuation, figuring out finally what era it is. It lets you decide for yourself, but this is probably around the 1970s or late 60s, early 70s when this takes place. And this is it is a crime, um, a crime manhunt thing with this as a background, but it has some characters from the movies, the original movie that shows up the last few issues, and draws some interesting parallels about trying to figure out of follow-ups about trying to figure out who and what the Gill Man is. But it also has this manhunt story with a serial killer. And this has one of the last page is one of them that you go, huh, I didn't see that coming. And I've got to get that next issue because the serial killer part takes a real twisty turn.
Hey,
But it's a really creative continuation of the Creature of the Black Lagoon legends, unlike the Dracula one they did, which was a retelling from a different perspective of the occurrences in the movie. This one has, it just takes some of the things and just runs with it for its own unique story. So let's see if I can find a good. The artwork is okay with this. I think that the artwork on Dracula was so sweet, so good, so mood building that it spoiled me. This one is not quite that way. And the creature is definitely kept in the shadows, which, of all the different universal monsters, the creature is one that doesn't have to stick to the shadows. Once you reveal him, get him out there
yeah,
where you can see him because he's impressive. I still remember first time I saw a creature movie with those gills that would move when he's on the surface, and just um, Dracula and Frankenstein were cool, but the creature and Wolfman were the coolest just from the pure aesthetic, horror aesthetic of it. But there you have a little bit of a
Oh, the eye glow there.
yeah,
yeah.
pretty nice. You don't get many shots of that though, because like I said, it's a murky, shadowy kind of approach.
One of
And
the best, oh,
go ahead.
one of the best scenes in Creatures is she's swimming.
Oh, the
She's
synchronized swimming. Yes.
she's swimming, and then he's right below her.
The
And
water
you think
ballet.
the water's supposed to be murky enough where she can't see down to where he is, but they shoot
Mhm,
it so that you see her, and then you see her and him, and their movements are.
mhm.
It's like, oh man,
Yep, yep. Our main character in this, she is a tough investigative reporter, and I mean she's a good character. She is tough and determined. She's like a bulldog. She's on the story. The serial killer tried to kill her. She got in his way, and she's not letting this go. Very different kind of character. You don't have that kind of a love affair with the creature, but there's a little bit of that. They still have sharing some water space at times, and it with a different from a different again a different kind of perspective. Um,
okay,
but it works. It reminds you. It's reminiscent of the other movies. So um, my favorite read of this week was Neil Gaiman's Anansi Boys. I hope I'm saying
oh
that.
yes,
Yes.
I've got the book. It's great.
I've heard that. I've not read the book, but I have read American Gods, and I have read American God comic books, and this is very much in that same vein. Um,
Okay,
and it's an adaptation um, by Mark Bernardin. Um, with the story was originally Neil Gaiman, so it's an adaptation by Mark Bernardin of his work, with I believe his approval. I think Neil Gaiman has signed off on all
yeah,
this, so
yeah,
so. But it's one of those really it's a character building issue, which for some people that would be exposition nightmare fuel, and this just hooks you, just draws you in as the character is being um, explored, you know, you have that game of net that just pulls you in to want to know more.
Yeah,
That's
it, the
rare
book
talent.
is like that. The book is
Okay.
like that. The book just kind of gets you into this. Oh, who is this guy? Oh no, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
how do these guys can? It was just yes.
And the mood, it has a very moody feel to it. Depending on this, not all of it is shadowy, but it
No,
has enough of those mysterious um, elements like this page.
it if it's anywhere as good as any of the other adaptations of his work, because I finished a couple of months ago. I read
Hmm.
the Graveyard Book
Hmm.
and loved it, and I got book one. They did a graphic novel version of it. It's in two volumes. I got volume one. I've got the guy who owns First Aid trying to see if he can get volume two for me because I would love to have both of them.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, Gaiman's one of those writers. He just kind of, when he's on the job, I have never read a book of his, and I've read Anansi Boys, I've read the Graveyard Book, I've read, what is it? Of course, the Sandman series.
Hmm.
I and I love Sandman series. If you can get the audiobook versions, it's I love the audiobook versions. It just, but Ocean at the End of what is it? Ocean at the End of the Lane is a favorite of
Hmm.
mine as well. Um, but I love his writing.
Hmm.
I am in love with his writing. What did I just finish? Oh, Stardust. I just
Oh
finished
yeah.
the audiobook of Stardust.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just I just adore his writing. He really, when he gets you into the story, you
Hmm.
know, even if you can put it down because you have life to get with, there's that part. It's like, okay, let me hurry up and get life out of the way so I can sit down and get to this book again.
And this, like I said, it's showing you a person's part of their life story, and from a modern perspective, they're talking to somebody else, relating to them things about their childhood, and building up about their parent, and it's moving you along. There is no big action. There are things that happen, but it's not like we're running and we're jumping and we're no. It's just building and building, and then you get to the last page and mic drop, blop. So you're like, oh yeah, I got to get the next issue. I
it,
got
it
to.
reading Gaiman reminds me of this is what it was like in the old days when people sat around the campfire and the
Yes,
storyteller would come and weave
exactly.
his tale. And this
Well said.
book, I love it because he also through it weaves the tale of Anansi, which is an African
Mhm,
spider god.
mhm,
And he's also one of the spider god. He's also one of the gods featured in American God.
right.
Anansi is also in that book. And
Mhm,
I remember when I was reading American Gods, it was like, Anansi's here. It's
yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
my God, what are you doing to me, man? I'm gonna kill you. Um, but he weaves these tales so beautifully, and you just for me, it's like I just want to get more into that world. I just want to
Mhm.
go deeper. I want to learn more. Tell me another story. Give me another tale. Oh, I could just it reminds me there's a episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, where they end up having to transport this woman who's an empath, and she falls for Picard. And there's this great scene where I think he comes into his room and she's there and she's like, "You don't have to touch me. I just want to lay here and listen to your voice in the dark." It's like, yeah, that's Neil Gaiman for me.
There you go. There you go.
You ain't got to touch me, boo. Just lay here and tell me stories in the dark.
Mhm, mhm. Read the phone book to me, please. Begin with page 1 and then move slowly to the yellow pages. Yes, thank you.
He, it,
Okay, so but my review is gonna be for one that came out a couple weeks ago called Rifters. This is a Image comic, and I think this is one of those covers that works pretty well without being too actiony. It interested me, had me interested
Yeah.
because I knew it was a time travel. It's a time travel story, so and about agents that control the timeline. And okay, I can get along with this. Um,
That
so
cover makes me think of Blade Runner.
yes,
The guy
yes.
holding the gun.
Hmm.
It's Harrison Ford. That's Harrison Ford from Blade Runner.
Now the interior art is by Chris Johnson, and I have seen his work before. And every time I see it, the first thing I think of is Rick Veitch, because he has a style that's a little more realistic than Rick. Rick's was he's a funny. His would be usually take a funny turn. This has got a humorous tone, but it's a little more realistic. And not all of it is humor. Some of it is like nervous humor. Yeah. For example, we have some the news talking about. Oh look, today it was announced that the time barrier has been broken, and
Oh,
everybody can get a piece of the action, which ought to be terrifying.
yes.
And what you got is a Elon Musk kind of guy going, you know, his name is Simon, so he's like, the Simon Tech says, who says you can go back and change things in your past? Simon Tech says you can, and you can tell by the look on his face. Yeah, he's real stable, sure. And so it ends up going to court. And you have the Supreme Court justices that say we will allow time travel because they've already figured out this is going to cause all sorts of problems. We will allow time travel, but only for science, for research. And
Yeah,
here are the
right.
scientists going, yeah, okay. So yeah, that doesn't last. But because before too long, as soon as there's a profit to be made, you got guys going back and hunting saber-toothed cats. And yeah, it turns out badly. That's why they have to make rifters. They are timeline police that
Ah,
go back and try to fix things or prevent you from doing silly things that you ought not do to the timeline. So it's a buddy
Homer.
cop kind of movie, huh?
I keep thinking I forget which treehouse of horror it is, but it's Homer keeps going back in time. And
Uh-huh.
there's a line, oh, I wish I hadn't killed that fish. Because every time he goes back in time, the freaky scientist makes an invention and Homer starts abusing it so he can go back in time. He says every time he goes back in time to fix the mistake he made before, he makes the even bigger mistake.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll get into it, but yeah, that's just kind of a similar thing here. Um, Here you have them back in the Prohibition era, causing all kinds of mayhem. The cops, because they're loose cannons. I mean,
Oh no, Apple Annie.
do what now?
Um, there's an old Hollywood musical when they were back in the street thugs are cool type
Uh
thing.
huh.
Mobsters are cool. Betty Davis was Apple Annie. I forget the movie. Her daughter's coming into town. She's an old homeless lady that sells apples to the mobsters to eat, and they then have to make her out to be a lady.
Ah.
So the daughter doesn't realize that she's been homeless
Mm.
all this time, but her character is Apple Annie. And it was one of those. It was kind of in the veins of Guys and Dolls
Ah. Okay.
or the Lemon Drop Kid.
Hmm. Okay.
But when I saw the apples, that's my first thought was, oh my God, Apple
Oh.
Annie got whacked.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're not too far off, maybe. But Rifters number one. Writer is Brian Posehn and Joe Troman. The artist is Chris Johnson. The colorist is Mark Englert, and the letterer is Joe Sabino. It is published by Image Comics, and um, with stories of time travel, variant realities, and multiverse tales comprising a deluge in pop culture media. Um, I think we're overdue for a less serious take on the subject. Not that we don't enjoy, well-crafted universe stories with Doctor Who, or dramas like Timeless, and even the lighthearted trips of Bill and Ted, but seeing the power of transtemporal navigation staggeringly misused and abused in ways that would be consistent with technological breakthroughs across human history is a little actually it's a fertile field for dark comedy. And Rifters number 1, that's the plow for this field. The premiere doesn't exactly live up to. They had a ridiculously, hilariously graphic adult diaper caution hyperbole issuance with their preview of this book. But you need to basically, strap yourself into the chair with duct tape and get ready to just crap yourself all over because it's just that exciting. Now, given the tone of the comic, I get it, but I never really lost control of my bodily functions. I don't know. It was good. It wasn't that good, but it has the right. It does fulfill with that kind of a preview. It does fulfill its irreverent spirit of this title. So, how do co-writers Brian Posehn and Joe Trollman accomplish this? Well, what they do is they mirror real-world examples of adventurers, entrepreneurs, and advancements that have been released without what we might call proper forethought. And then regulation applied to reduce the resulting damage, followed by usually disastrous deregulation in the name of big profits,
Oh man.
which is another way of saying they explore what happens when a life-changing quantum leap is applied using the lowest human potential.
Okay.
Yeah, in 2031, a process for breaking the time barrier is achieved, and what begins as mostly science-driven voyeurism in gathering historical facts, but also wagering on the outcomes. As being able to go back in time, you can find out exactly what was said and when by whom. That soon devolves into century-leaping podcasts by influencers without any regard for preservation of timeline continuity. Well, governments scrambling to stem the tide of temporal violations result in rift units, regulators of finite and infinite time. Agents like Geller and Fenton, they are tasked with tracking down violators whose time travel stunts threaten integrity of the prime timeline and stopping them. So, in the best tradition of buddy cop performing a thankless job of basically being sanitation engineers for human folly, our protagonists aren't exactly by the book operators. These two are a lot more about the spirit of the law and less about the letter of the law, which for time travel cops can make it very dicey. And in their first adventure, their methods leave them possibly doing more harm than good. As you saw, as the beginning of that whole street scene with the cars, and that devolves, it goes bad. So
Oh
uh,
man.
the exposition elements here are both fast-paced and equally entertaining. History is filled with humans behaving badly, so time-traveling humans turning up the chaos by acting even worse, that's just Nirvana satire. The creative team gets added points for tackling one omission to time travel that I have nagged about for decades. Nobody ever talks about it. They did. Namely, the stench of the past. If there were such a thing as chrononauts exploring 1880s London, they better be ready for some close encounters with August sewer effluvia. For travelers to ancient Rome, they ought to expect roads grimy with animal poop and the glorious smells of rotting Pantheon temple sacrifices. Halitosis in the early days of dental hygiene, that would curl nasal hair more than it already is. So truly, one lucrative exploitation of time travel should be in developing invisible breathing filters so that those with modern sensibilities are not reduced to ralphing uncontrollably on arrival.
We're in
And
nature.
and bless their hearts, Posehn and Trollman, they actually briefly indulge in long overdue olfactory discussion when it comes to time travel. Not only in the 20s, is where they've gone back, but they have my gratitude for it. Chris Johnson's art and Mark Englert's colors, they combine for an ideal aesthetic, I think, for this title, because they can present historical accuracy as far as the figures. They look like who they're supposed to look like. Their expressions are humorous at times, but also, like I said, some of it is nervous humor. It's like, oh no, this is bad. And they present historical accuracy blended with a whimsical mischief. Now, that collaboration grants another layer of visual, ribald humor that complements a saucy and clever script. So, together, this creative team's whipped up a fine comics launch for a story that has it's for anybody that gets tickled by laughably ill-advised Jurassic selfies and temporal investigations resulting from extremely inadvisable science. And my verdict is this is going to get a 7 out of 10 on my score this week. It's a good start. I hope that they can continue that same satirical approach with as much with as many little laughs and oh no's as this first issue had.
That sounds like something I gotta look for.
Yeah, it's it's not bad. It's not afraid to take some chances. It's a buddy cop time travel thing. We've seen that before, but I haven't for a while, so this seemed overdue to me.
So it is about that time for us to say goodnight here, I think.
Okay.
So we're
Yeah,
gonna go
I got
ahead. So we're
I
gonna
have to
start
read
with
that
Elaine here.
Thank you. I tried to put my thing on the there to.
Can you hear
I-
me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Sorry, my headphones just died.
Oh no.
Okay.
Anyway, you can find me here on YouTube/C/Elaine Haygood. You can then find the rest of my social media for there. But I also follow both Clyde and Joe on Facebook. So
Yay!
find me here. You can find me on the Book of Faces by finding them. That's the simplest way to do it. Thank
Yep.
you for hanging out with us. We love you. I love you. I don't know about, Joe. He doesn't tend to love anybody, but I love
That's a
you.
rumor.
I love you. Can't wait to see you next week.
Nope, not next week.
No, not next week.
Sorry, week after
Yeah, you want
that.
to be here by yourself up there with the
I
fold
know
up
where you
camera
live,
talking
Joe.
about I'm tired of cooking for
I know where you live,
unappreciated
Joe.
people.
I will find you.
Well, I love you, and I'm Clyde Hall. I'm an elder statesman of geekery, self-explained, self promoted that way. And first of all, everybody have a safe and a happy 4th of July next week. We will not be here, and we will miss you, but be with your families, enjoy the time, stay safe, travel well, and stay cool. I don't know if it's what it's like in your part of the country, but it has been really hot here until yesterday. We got some rain finally, but hydrate often if you're going to be out and about, and take bug spray because the cicadas may be gone, but I have it on good authority that the ticks and the mosquitoes are still around. So if you're going to go out and watch fireworks, take care of yourselves. I'm currently part of the online comic book review crew at Comics Beat, aka The Beat. You can find that on Twitter and on Facebook. They also have their own site, www.comicsbeat, all one word, .com. And you can find me on Facebook, the Book of Faces, as Elaine says. I have an account under Clyde Hall and Radiating Positive Vibes with author Clyde Hall. And on those, once a day, we try to put up a post that will make you laugh, or maybe bring up something nostalgic that you like, or we look at artwork, we look at museums. We have Museum Monday, we have Trippy Art Tuesday. So check us out. See if it doesn't make your day get off to a better start than it would otherwise. Um, and also, in my spare time, I'm an independent award winning author, contributing writer at Stormgate Press. Their newest short story anthology is The Lost Adventures of Captain Hawkland, volume number 2. Check it out. And if you do, it's available on Amazon. Let me know what you think of my contribution to that volume, The Archimedes Affair. Also, you can go to Stormgate Press at www.stormgatepress.com and see all of the things that will be coming up in the near future. You will notice if you go there, you will notice, or even if you check us out on Facebook, which you can do, my author's page is right down there. But if you look up, our organization on Facebook, any of our Pulp Reality series of short story anthologies, you'll find out that we do new pulp. We do Western new pulp. We do science fiction new pulp. We do a new take on pulp. And you will also notice that we have some wonderful award-winning covers. That is because Plasma Fire Graphics and Jeffrey Hayes are people that do some of the covers for us. Major Marjorie is one that he did. And Tim Bruckner's Major Marjorie cover won a Pulp Factory Award the year it came out. Jeffrey has since won an award last year, or this year, I should say, for the Terrors cover with a friend of the show and the originator of the show, actually, Brian K. Morris.
The
This is
founder
his
of
book.
the show.
I'm sorry?
Founder. He's the
Founder.
founder.
Yeah, originator, founder. He's the one that he was there and he put the stakes down for the foundation. So here we are. But Jeffrey Hayes of Plasma Fire Graphics is the artist in question here. And the good news is, if you like that cover, we were talking about covers earlier, Jeffrey Hayes knows how to make a cover. He knows how to make a cover that makes people interested in the book or game or product that you are promoting. And if you would like to know more about how to get Jeffrey Hayes at Plasma Fire Graphics, sponsor of this show, to work for you, Joe can explain it all.
Yes, I can. And this is how it goes. This is how it goes. Remember everything that I said earlier about, how I have to come out of my publisher brain here? Everything that he does on his covers relaxes my publisher brain because I don't have to worry about whether or not the book will catch somebody's attention here. If you don't believe me, watch this quick little short video.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasma Fire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasma Fire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
Tell me those covers did not catch your attention and made you more interested in what's in those books here. So if you saw what I saw here, go ahead and hit up Jeffrey Hayes at plasmafiregraphics.com or his Facebook group for Plasma Fire Graphics. As far as for me here, I will be back here Saturday for another episode of A Small Press Publisher. We're going to be talking about a couple of things here. Trying not to rehash a lot of stuff, but there's a couple of things that came back up here. I'm not certain if I'm going to talk about them directly because of YouTube videos that I've been seeing dealing with comic book collecting as a whole here. I saw one that talks about the 5 different types of people that frequent brick and mortar comic book stores, which I kind of disagree with. And the only reason I disagree with it is more because of the way it was categorized, more so than anything else. But again, this is a modern take on those type of people that he mentioned. I might do something dealing with that, or I might deal with another topic which came up here, was talking about how a lot of the pricing guys do not deal with fair market value correctly here. And I agree with this one YouTuber to a certain extent here. So it's one of those things where we get to Saturday, we get what we get. We might talk about something completely different, but those are what's on my mind for right now. So until then, live life, grow, and be well. And I see you when we see you. And we are out of here for another week. We'll catch you right back here next Thursday for Comic Book Spectrum.